Please, Alba.
Councilmember Yaffe.
Here.
Councilmember Salver. It's not present. Councilmember Chicoche is not present. Councilmember Reed.
Here.
Councilmember Leonard.
Here.
Vice Mayor Fuller.
Here.
Mayor Bruder.
Here. Okay. Unfortunately, Marlene can't be with us today, but we have a beautiful plaque for her. She was with us for many, many years. I think she started before most of us have been in the council, and she will be sorely, sorely missed. At least from my experience with her, she was always, approachable and helpful, and really loved this town. Does anybody want to say anything else?
Stephanie,
Yes.
I'd like the record to reflect that I was here at roll call.
Okay.
We're in the
Okay.
attendees.
I don't know, the link just didn't work consistently for me, so I was here.
That's fine.
I was
Alba,
here at the
please.
roll call, so let me say here.
Okay.
Okay, and yes, we're gonna miss Marlene.
Anybody?
Absolutely. She's, really done a great service to the town and to all of us on the council and the staff over all of these years. And Marlene has always been really dedicated to the town of Bay Harbor Islands. We've been very fortunate that she's been with us for 22 years, I believe.
That's true.
Yeah, and I want to say also, again, I want to appreciate her years, as well as her guidance through the years. There are very few people that are more knowledgeable about the town than Marlene, if any, and we really do appreciate her service both to the town and to all of us personally.
And
Yeah,
we wish
I'd
her
like
well in her retirement.
Yeah, I want to wish her congratulations on her retirement, and 100%. Marlene has been here for the entire time that I've been active, and she will be sorely missed. So congratulations. It's probably the best way to put it on her retirement.
Kelly?
I'd like to say also, Marlene, I hope you're watching, and congratulations on your retirement. And you have been a big help to me. You've served in many capacities here. You're always my go-to person to ask a question, information. I know you would know. You had most of the knowledge and most of the minutes in your head. And in your retirement, just remember, you can run for office in the town where you live.
Okay. Anybody else? Nope. Okay. Request for withdrawals, deferments, and future agenda items. Bob?
Yeah,
I'd like to defer 17 and 18 and possibly 19. 19, I don't know if this is the appropriate time just to ask the question, Mayor, since you put that on the agenda. If there's a discussion about process, then that's fine. If there's a thought to making a selection this evening, then I wish to defer it. Because quite some time ago, I asked for interview of the candidate firms, and we have not been able to do that. And I'm not prepared to make a decision without having the opportunity to interview.
So can we just discuss process and
Yes.
not necessarily anything else? And let's put this at the beginning of the meeting so that we can get this. Go ahead, Jordan.
yeah. I was gonna say, one of the things obviously is one of our colleagues is not here. It's obviously not appropriate to have a vote when we're missing someone. I mean, the attorney is only one of 3 people that we hire. So to be honest, out of respect to Elizabeth, we should push it back. But I do want to speak in regards to the process. So
Let's leave it on then to talk about the
Okay,
process.
so can we move this out of order and start with this since we've already started this?
Your
Congress-
choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, so let's start with that. Since
Wait,
we've already-
Mayor, I just want
Yes.
to clarify. Councilmember Yaffe, you deferred item number 17 and 18?
Let me check that. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, is there anybody, before we have that discussion, is there anybody else who wants to defer,
Yeah.
withdraw? Yes?
Yeah, I have new items. One is I'd like to have a discussion item in regards to the undergrounding the FPL lines, obviously due to the economy and the low interest rates, it's something I'd like to revisit for next month. And also something that's been near and dear to my heart is offering a gun safety program in conjunction with Miami-Dade County Public Schools. It's something that seems like there seems to be an interest, and I'd like to have a discussion and possible action item in the next meeting. I'll present that agenda item. So,
Okay, anybody else before?
Just mayor's want to mention Councilmember Tricocci asked to withdraw temporarily the item 20 from the agenda since she's not
20.
here.
Well, I would like to discuss it because if we're going to do the next, we can wait, but the next agenda item next month is humongous.
Okay.
So I'm just letting, we can withdraw it, but I don't know if we're going to get to it next month with everything else that's on that agenda. But it's up to the council.
Let me just say one thing on that one. Just remember that they were also asking for direction, and that's based upon whatever happens in the 17 and 18, which have now been deferred.
Well, I think this is about the lights.
It is. Well, so it goes
But
back. It's
related.
back. It talks about, when you read through the materials on 20, it talks about reducing the cost dependent on our 17 and 18.
Okay. So then
Right. Right.
Yeah,
I just want to add one thing about the lights. I'm sorry, I have an echo here.
that's okay.
When we discuss it next month, I would like to see the addition of the tot lot, because we're only talking about lighting for the East Island parks, and we have one other park at the moment.
Right. So I would like then, part of it is to know how much we have in our impact fees for parks, how much we've spent already, so that we know, because how much we have actually left in our impact fees from the park before we bring this back up. Okay. Everybody
Okay.
got that?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else?
And then one other item regarding the parks. I want to revisit the ordinance that talks about how late the parks stay open.
Okay, so we will put that in our next
Agenda.
month's
We can.
agenda
Okay.
item.
All right.
I would also like to have a discussion about our codes. I think FEMA is changing, Durham is starting to change some of their codes, and we need to update it. So either we can have a workshop on it, or we can have a discussion on the agenda item and then move forward from there. What is the pleasure of the council?
Have an
Your
item.
choice.
Okay, so we'll do an item, and then if we need to extensively go back and do something else, we will. So
That's
is
fine.
there anybody else who has any issues with anything else? So we are.
Mayor, one more
Yes.
thing. Item number 2, 3, and 4 are actually recommendations from the Parks and Recreation. The chair, Ms. Kathleen Kennedy, had actually requested if the council could consider deferring those items, perhaps maybe the next council meeting. She wanted to pretty much give a report on those items. It's obviously the council's discretion.
Yeah, actually, let me actually say one thing, if I may, please. Because Miss Kennedy called me earlier today to let me know that she would not be at the meeting for these, because earlier today she lost what she said is a very dear friend to COVID. So I want to express our condolences to her, and I wanted everyone to know that is why she's not here tonight.
So I guess we will defer 2, 3, and 4.
All right.
So can we recap what we're deferring?
I'm going to recap.
Okay.
Okay, ready, everybody? So we are deferring 2, 3, 4. We are deferring 17, 18, 19. Well, 19
No,
we're going to
no.
take out of order,
Right.
and 20 we're deferring.
Yes.
Great.
Okay,
All right.
so let's start with 19 so that we can do that now and have that discussion so that we can get ourselves.
You want to do that before council reports and public comment, or?
Yeah, I just,
Okay,
because
that's fine.
we've already started this conversation. So before we do
Fair enough.
anything else, let's have this
Okay.
discussion about it. Okay, so Bob,
Well, hold on 1 second. Well, I guess, I'll mention it later. That's fine. Because we're not,
No, I mean-
we're not gonna vote, right? We're not voting.
Well, no,
Correct.
it's being deferred. Bob, in my understanding, would like there to be interviews, similar to what we did with the manager, where we can have discussions regarding the attorneys. Is that,
Well, that's correct. I mean, as Jordan said earlier, the council appoints 3 individuals, the manager, the attorney, and the clerk. I'm not going to hire an individual or a firm without having the opportunity to interview. We've learned that our request for proposals did not specify what the process would be. And therefore, I mean, we can have the discussion about the process. Back in, I think at our October meeting or November meeting, we talked about scheduling interviews. That was right around the time that the governor came out with his order prohibiting totally virtual meetings. And we had some question about how to proceed with those interviews if they were going to be virtual. But what I'd like to see is a special council meeting devoted solely to meeting the firms and having the opportunity to spend 15, 20 minutes or whatnot with each of the firms before we make a decision as to who to
so do you
appoint this
want,
next
do you
town attorney.
want a private meeting with each person, or you
I
want
don't
an
think
open
we're
forum?
we're not permitted to do that as I understand it.
Why?
Well, why not?
Well, cone of silence, I was told.
Yeah, you have, if I may, Madam
Yes.
Mayor, you have an RFP without a process built in, and you also have the cone of silence. So to the extent that you wanted to do those interviews, you would have to do it at a public meeting where you could spend, 10 to 15 minutes or as much time as you want or don't want with each of the applicants or the applicants who want to appear at that meeting. But that is where you would have to do it due to the cone of silence.
Okay, so Alba, first of all, you need to call the firms and see when are they available, and then, poll the council to see when they are available so that we can get this moving. Is that acceptable?
That's fine, but I wanted to add one thing when you're done with yours.
I'm done. Go.
I just want to say this, because I mean, since I can't contact until we do that meeting, can't interview the individual firms, I do want to put one topic out there that hopefully, and Frank, I'm allowed to say, I'm assuming right now, what my question will be about at that meeting.
Sure.
Just so
I
they
mean,
can
this is
prepare.
a public meeting. You could say
That's
whatever
what I just
you
I wanted to confirm, I'm focused, as everyone knows, on dealing with this issue with the FAA. And we've begun litigation dealing with the FAA. So for any of the applicants, my main questions are going to be towards the additional cost that would be incurred by getting them caught up to speed and then proceeding with litigation. Because I don't want an open-ended or a blank check written along those lines. Since the town is committed to trying to protect the residents for the FAA's actions, I have no intention of leaving that price open with an essentially unending checkbook for any incoming law firm.
I have a question for Frank.
Yes.
Even though that we're scheduling individual interviews or whatnot, nothing would we be allowed to have like a for example, like a sunshine meeting, as long as it's a publicly noticed meeting, if we want to have a second follow-up meeting with one of the principals or the firms or whatnot? I mean, can we do that as long as?
So you could have one or more meetings as long as we're complying with the cone of silence and having those meetings in the public at a publicly noticed meeting.
Yeah.
Because then the cone of silence is no longer applicable, and you can certainly do that. I would just respectfully,
Yeah.
pardon?
Because it's a sunshine meeting, as long as it's noticed.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I would just respectfully request that if the council could do this and make a decision before the end of the month, I would greatly appreciate it.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you think we could have a special meeting in the next week or two, and maybe start by letting each firm give a presentation, give them an amount of time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, kind of turn it into question and answer after that, like from us, from the public, but at least to let them start by a presentation.
Yeah, I think we
That's
need a
fine.
presentation because, you know, on paper, everything is not, you know, I think that we need to know who each firm is, you know, let them present to us and then let us ask as many questions in the public because it's a very important component to our, our town.
Maybe if you'd like to, an idea is maybe ask the public in advance for a question that they would like to ask of all of the candidates. If they know in advance, you know, if they want to ask everyone how many dogs they have, you know, then
Right.
we have them and that might save and also make it more consistent so that they all have the same questions to answer.
Okay, so I think I think that's a great idea. I think that maybe we can have it on our website and, you know, and our Facebook that we're looking for questions from the council, from the public, so that we can have them in advance and give them to the attorneys for them to be able to answer them. Yes, I can't know who's asking me a question. Anybody?
I mean, so are we not going to have interviews or are we doing both? What are we going to do?
I think it's a
'Cause now
combined
Yeah, it's an all in
presentation
one meeting.
and questions. All right. Each firm can give us a presentation and we'll have the opportunity as council members to inquire of the various firms and their principals.
I mean, logistically, can we do this all by the end of the month?
It
I
depends on
cannot.
everybody's availability. Yeah, it's gonna
I
be tough.
cannot. I can tell you right now, I cannot.
Can it be done by Zoom?
Yes,
Yeah, sure.
absolutely.
Like it's interviews, it's not the actual selection, so
Well,
that should,
Well, it'd be both. We would probably do it all at the same meeting, I would assume.
you can
Well, I
do it
mean, we
any way
did-
you want as long as you do it at a public meeting, at one or more public meetings.
A lot of public meetings.
Well,
There's what,
first of
7
all-
firms?
First of all, we have to see, it's been a long time. We have to see how many of those firms are still interested in participating.
Mayor, just so you know, all of the law firms were notified and they're all listening right now. So
Okay,
they're
but
all still
7,
interested.
right, so doing 7 firms in one day is a lot, and then to vote, that's a lot to do in one
But
sitting.
also 7 firms, and if they all round robin and have 7 interviews with 7 different council members, ask Josh, that's a lot of new math, you know? You know, that's a lot of Zoom meetings before we get to the meeting of the vote.
1 second, are we doing this in an open forum where an attorney,
Right.
or are we doing this where we actually, each one of us interview? I'm a little confused, Jordan. Are
No,
we in?
I think
My suggestion was that the council as a whole would interview each of the candidate firms, not have, 7 council members meet with 7 firms individually. I mean, at a public meeting.
So you're talking about 7 separate meetings. So 1 meeting for each attorney's
No.
firm?
I'm talking about take 2 hours or 3 hours on an evening.
And just do one.
Okay,
one
and just
round
do
through
all
every-
7, just line them up, 20 minutes apiece, whatever it is, for presentation questions, and then go forward. We did that years ago, I think, with
Yeah.
town manager candidates.
That'll work for me.
Jordan, are you
Again, I
comfortable
emphasize
with
FAA.
I mean, I'd like to have the ability that if, like, so let me ask you a question. So hypothetically, we would do the interviews, but that would not be the same date as the vote, right? So we could have follow-up questions individually if we want to have a sunshine meeting. Like, let's say I had a question or something didn't sound right, or I had another thing that came up. We can have a separate public meeting by Zoom, just one of the council members and one of the firms, if people want to do follow-up. Is that something we can do?
Well, why don't we plan the meeting, okay, with 7 council members interviewing 7 firms, and if at that meeting you determine that there should be follow-up or you'd like to have follow-up, we can figure out the process at that time.
All right.
I mean, just remember, it's a very important decision, but we do have to
Right.
eventually make a decision. So
Right.
Yeah, well, it's
I
been
have-
a
And
long time.
if you're not comfortable making a vote, at least let's interview them all and then, narrow it down. We can do the narrowing down again like we've done for other things and go from there. Or Jordan, if you're not comfortable making that decision that day, then we don't have to make it that day, but we do need to start
No,
somewhere.
I agree. No, believe me, I agree. Me personally, I don't feel comfortable voting for anybody unless if I actually interviewed all the candidates. I mean, I don't vote for planning and zoning without interviewing people. So for me, hiring legal counsel, it'd be out of my nature not to interview everyone individually. So I'm 100% on board for interviews.
Stephanie,
Yes.
I have to say that after participating in my first selection for the manager, where we used a consultant, and we all agreed that we didn't want to do that. You know, it was a consensus. So, you know, here we're trying to do this on our own. But I have to tell you that my experience with these private meetings, although legal, I found them problematic. We actually had candidates who did not want to participate in that. I think this should really be done out in the open. I can't imagine anything that we would need to ask a candidate for our, you know, legal advisor that we wouldn't want to say out in the open, you know? I'm for everything in the sunshine.
It
That's
is
how
in
we're
the
going to do it.
sunshine. It is in the sunshine. There's
You want to, maybe I'm not clear then. Jordan,
You're not
you want
clear.
to have, okay, so you want
I
to
would
have
like to
private-
have.
Okay.
Are they
guys.
It's not
recorded?
private. What I'm in favor of is the ability to have follow-up questions with individual firms. Now, since it has to be a public meeting, I'm all for that. The problem that I have is, one, choosing a firm without interviewing anybody. I am not in favor of that. And I'm somewhat lukewarm about just having a meeting and interviewing people for 5 minutes and then make a decision. I think something as important like this demands the respect of giving it the time. And we've devoted 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, and we haven't interviewed anybody, and we haven't really done anything. We need to put a couple weeks to actually interview people, and God forbid we have a follow-up question that requires a publicly noticed meeting, and I'm all for that. But
Okay, so I think I have a solution.
Yeah.
Let's do our public forum. We don't have to vote that day, but let's at least meet the different law firms out in the open.
That's fine.
Have the people ask, you know, like Kelly said, have the citizens write in their questions so that they can be answered by the different participants. Let them do their presentation. Let the council ask as many questions as you want, and then we can schedule, if we will notify us, you know, and have a second meeting in which we can have follow-up and or a vote. Does that work for you, Jordan?
that's
Kelly?
fine. That's fine.
Is that okay, Kelly?
Oh, I'm fine. I just wanted to clarify. I thought that Jordan was asking for private meetings like we had with the managers. So that
Well,
was
it's not private. They're publicly noticed
But yes,
meetings.
yes,
No,
that's what he.
they're not
Right.
recorded. They are private. It was one-on-one meetings. Didn't you have a one-on-one meeting with all the manager candidates?
Mr. Simone advised us that we would have to have publicly noticed meetings in regards to this. This is not the
Yeah,
same thing.
That's what he wants, but we're gonna do it the way, if that's okay with everybody, the
It's
way I
fine.
just structured
fine.
it, and that way we're not voting on the first go around. We'll interview everybody, Jordan, then we'll go home. We have more questions. We'll
Right.
notice the second meeting. We'll either have follow-up questions and a vote.
Yeah.
Is everybody comfortable with
Thank you.
that?
It's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, perfect.
So all
Okay.
you have to do is notice the meeting and actually have it now.
Mayor, if I can just ask, do you guys want me to schedule a special council meeting before
Yes.
the March
Yes.
meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
I
Before
will
the
have to
March
talk to-
10th meeting?
I will have to talk to you in private.
I guess I will just hold everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please poll. Okay. Now, let's go back. Sorry, everybody. Okay, town managers report. Maria?
I would like to mention one thing that happened today. On January 13th meeting, the council approved a contract for $27,540 to Lakes Engineering to repair a damaged conduit and power line. FPL has told us today that they are actually going to do the repair, so we no longer have to worry about it or pay the expense of it.
Wow.
Very
Okay,
good.
that's great.
That's
Good
unheard of.
job.
I've never heard FPL say, don't worry about
Is
it.
Is it? You sure it was really FPNL?
Yeah, I have an email. It says it for the intercoastal waterway bridge.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay,
Wow,
anything
that's
else?
great.
No,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Town attorney?
Yes, 3 items for your to report on. The first one has to do with Smart Park. If you remember, it's in the Block 11. They were issuing those citations or notices of parking violations that look like citations and the like. We had multiple discussions with the property owner. I had discussions with their attorney, and then their owner called today. When we talked to them, one of the things that we talked about was bringing their violation notices in line with what the town charges. That way they're all violations in the town for parking are the same. He is agreeable to doing that. The county recently increased its amount. We peg our violations, our citations, parking citations, off the counties, and they're willing to do that effectively today, where they would bring it down to what the county charges. We, every year, it's my understanding that we peg it ours to the counties. Therefore, it would be a uniform amount throughout the town. Now, those are not enforceable in the same method and manner of ours. Ours are enforceable. Theirs are subject to collections. But when the town manager, the property owner, and my follow-up discussions thought that might be an equitable solution, subject to the council's thoughts on that matter.
I have a question.
Please.
Okay. I actually received the complaint from one of the patrons of the business and brought it to the manager's attention. And it seems like, just like Frank says, they can charge whatever, but it's not enforceable. You can get a ticket, and if you don't pay it, it's not going to court. Private citizens don't, enforce tickets by court. So Frank, are you saying that it can be a collections issue? It can be referred to collections. So if someone doesn't pay a $20 ticket, then they can somehow, put a lien on their car or something like that?
Well, no, they would have the sole discretion and authority to try to enforce those notices of violation. They would have to do it in the same manner that anyone who tried to collect monies from another person would do that. It's not enforceable like our citations that go through legal channels. That's a different matter. That's like them trying to collect on a medical bill or any other item, except that item, you're not actually signing a contract saying you're going to be liable for it.
Okay. Also, the incident that gave rise to the complaint, it was a handicap spot, someone with a valid handicap tag, and they were used to certain public spots where you don't have to pay, so they didn't pay the fee.
Right.
So we also told them we didn't want any booting and we didn't want any towing. So can you speak to those 3 things, the disabled parking, booting, and towing?
I have a comment, if I might, Mayor.
Yes, please.
So I also received a complaint about the parking there. Somebody who has one of those parking hang tags where, they don't have to pay for parking, was ticketed, not knowing that it was private parking. The signage there is non-existent. No one would know that they're parking in private parking because there's no signs out there. And we need to revisit this, terminate this arrangement if we can, if the private property owner is not willing to put appropriate signage out there so that people know that they're parking in private parking, first of all. And second, if they see somebody with a handicap parking or one of those hang tags, they should put a warning to let you know, the person who's parking know that it is private parking and they'll have to park elsewhere.
So
I
why
think
don't,
this whole arrangement that we
Right.
agreed to is not going to work, and we need to end it
Well,
when we can.
wait,
let
can
me
we
say something.
just,
Yeah.
wait.
Go ahead.
Can we just have them come back next month and actually talk? Remember when we had the conversation with them in the first place? We need to let them know how, first of all, how what they promised us and what they're actually doing are separate things, and that it's not working for us. And the best thing to do is to actually have them come before us again and have that discussion. We've tried it for a while. That was part of the agreement, was we were going to try it. Well, obviously, it's not working. And, you know, I think that, like Bob, I think we should just have them come back, either tell them, fix it,
We-
or,
We gave
If-
them a year. Can we bring it back before the year, Frank?
Well, technically, they have, there are a couple of things. I gave the council an opinion on this as to whether or not we had informed consent. So much of it was redacted. There was a lot of information that was not given to us. As we say in our personal household, failure to give all the information is an omission of fact, and is an issue. I've said that perhaps we could move to undo it based upon our lack of full informed consent. So, and they're well aware of that as well. So I could certainly ask that they come. I can certainly discuss some of these other items with them as well. And we could certainly invite them to appear. I have a feeling that they're probably changing course somewhat, as I believe that they'll want to do additional business in the town. And I
If-
think
Well,
there are some.
Well,
let me ask you
self-
one thing, and this might cut it. Does anybody, is anybody interested in just having, you know, stopping the, rescinding the contract, and, or
Well,
do you?
Well, that
Let me-
was my
let me interrupt for a
question.
second. But hold on,
because,
Jordan, let me interrupt for 1 second.
Yeah, yeah.
because If I recall, one of the requirements, and this is one of the discussion items we had with them, was that they were going to provide the proper signage and indicate each individual sign. In fact, we actually spent time talking about the distance of the amount of sign between the spots, the location of those signs, the frequency they're going to see, I mean, everything. And if that was, and I believe that was supposed to be put in the contract, if they're in violation of that and they've breached it, then we don't have much of a problem. It's over. Then they no
Well, the
longer have the
booting
right
too.
there.
The
Well,
booting,
booting
also,
was
right?
never
Oh.
booting was never to be allowed.
Yeah, and they're
we,
not.
We were very right. Where we made it very clear in this town we don't allow booting unless you have a 24-hour person who's going to be monitoring to be able to release, and nobody's ever done that. So if they're in violation, we've got a problem with them. The other thing is, I just wanted to say something else, follow up to what Kelly's question when you talked about enforcement, and you know, Frank will tell me if I'm incorrect, but you know, when they talk about enforcement on a private action here, and they're trying to collect a debt, one of the things that's interesting is if they do it improperly, they themselves may be opening themselves up to attorney's fees, costs, and other penalties. So it's just, in other words, when they try and enforce something improperly with, you know, just like any debt collector, they have a negative if they do it wrong.
Oh, thank you for clarifying that.
Well, let me ask you, does anybody in the council just want to rescind their contract based on what Frank has said to us and what Josh has said, that they haven't followed the contract?
Do they have a cure provision? That's the issue.
Yeah.
Let me
So I'm-
ask that, Mayor,
what
there's
I
not
would-
a contract in place. What there is a
Yeah.
business tax receipt. And
Correct.
with the conditions that they do not have any vehicle immobilization, such as booting.
So they-
and no
they-
phone.
They already violated it.
They violated it.
How about if we bring that prior approval back to the council for reconsideration for the next meeting?
You don't need
don't
to
need to.
administratively just,
You
you could
need
just
to make.
pull the permit.
Okay,
Okay.
who wants to pull the permits?
I would respectfully suggest, I'm bringing this just as a report. This hasn't been noticed. The property owner and the service have not been noticed for this. I think it would be improper to do it at this juncture. We could certainly add it to a council meeting for discussion. That would be proper. That would be due process. I could
Okay,
also.
so
have
let's do
discussion-
that.
So bring it back up the next month.
And
Okay.
Frank, can you please let them know that we're about to rescind their
I've been
business?
Yes, Mayor, I apologize. I've been very steadfast in what we would like to see, and have not bent on any of those items. So I will be more than happy to continue in that posture.
I
Okay.
agree with that. I agree with that.
Let me ask you a question. Does the council need to actually vote to rescind the BTR, or can it be done administratively if they just violated the terms that the council agreed? Can it be done
It requires a
administratively?
council act since the council gave it. Now, if it were very clear insofar as the conditions that were included in that, that would be one thing, and it was very clear. We sent them a demand letter. We gave them an opportunity to cure, but this is a little bit different. So
Let's play it
I
safe
think-
and bring it back in front of
Yeah,
council.
no, we'll bring it,
Fine.
but let them
Fine.
know that we're,
That's fine. It's
okay,
fine.
Perfect.
All right.
Okay.
One final point on this. So all the other properties, like, behind there that have the private spots, what do they do if someone parks in their spot erroneously? Do they tow?
They
have a
can.
towaway?
Absolutely.
So we just have to consider, right, that if we were to rescind this arrangement, then the alternative could be a possible tow, but it would be properly noticed.
Correct.
And it would be, consistent.
Sure.
Correct.
So the requirements at law to tow are just to have a sign that says tow away zone 1, and 2, the name of the towing company. That's all that's required, just so we're clear. So that was the first item. If there are no other questions, I'll move on to the second item.
Please.
The second item is the FAA. We filed our petition. We had a meeting amongst the lawyers today who are all handling the private petitions. We discussed the fact that probably there will be consolidation. We're surprised that the court hasn't required it. We've also discussed our actual briefs as well. In addition, there's been a lot more cooperation and sharing of ideas, which there wasn't before. We kind of, on behalf of Bay Harbor, kind of made it such that they realized it was important to all row together. And so they sent over a cooperation agreement today. In addition, there has been the FAA released not an environmental, but rather a neighborhood analysis with reporting and comment period until March that I will circulate. And that gives us the right to comment on some of the issues that they considered, including the fact that the decibel levels that they find acceptable are rather high or rather low, actually, and really don't represent what's happening presently. So there's additional arguments based on that as well. So that's going to be picking up hot and heavy soon, especially after the comment period ends in March.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions or comments with regard?
Yeah, I just have a quick comment. I have to say that the amount of planes, forget the planes, the amount of helicopters that come over Bay Harbor Islands, I
But
mean, it's like
that's-
living near an airport.
But that's different because that's coming from Opalaka. That's
No,
really
I know
not.
And
it is,
Perry,
but
no,
I'm
it's all,
saying-
but it's all intertwined. We're
But
dealing
it's
with
all together, and it
Right.
is. If you think it's bad now, I can't imagine when COVID gets better and Americans start flying again. I mean, this is what it's like during the pandemic. I can't imagine a year from now. We have to do something now. This is horrible.
We are.
Well, we are.
Let me address that, I guess, because I was going to do it in the council reports, but let me just hit that now, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
We are obviously doing quite a bit, coordinating a lot of things with Frank. At the same time, we did make a decision. We hired Becker Polyakov as our federal lobbyist. We've been having weekly meetings with them. Maria and I have been discussing it with them on how to proceed. I've also had multiple communications with council members from neighboring cities, all the way from Miami Beach up through NNB and so forth. Everybody's, for the most part, on board trying to push the same thing. We're finding cooperation, and surprisingly, from some areas we didn't think we necessarily have it before. And I'll give out more details as they continue to come in. I also met with Sally Hayman, Commissioner Sally Hayman, about this. She as well is trying to push the communities to work together, and we are trying to see what we can do to try and force the FAA back to the old plans and how they used to do it for the last 40 or 50 years that everybody was relatively happy with.
You hear
so
the
we are-
plane?
Yeah, oh, there's been multiple. Every few minutes, there's another one. But, and I don't know if anybody else can hear it because our microphones are in our ears, but it is way too frequent. But we are talking about, I just want to let you know, we are talking about the planes. We're also dealing with the helicopters. We're talking about the banner planes that are coming out of Perry Airport. We're talking about the cargo planes. Nothing is being skipped. Now, I can't promise we're going to be successful, but I can promise you we're going to give it every effort we can to try and prevent it from continuing.
This is horrible.
Yep.
It's,
Okay,
Okay.
if there's nothing else on that. I have one final matter, and I apologize for monopolizing time today, but they were all important items that I know the council was very interested in, and I've had a significant movement in. The final item is the meat bar. So you had seen, we sent a demand letter reminding them of their outdoor cafe permit and the fact that they were breaching the terms of that by being a nuisance, by obstructing the sidewalk and the like. Their attorney called me today and said, look, we want to work with the town. We don't want to be those people. We have a sign up. We've told people to wear their masks. We've told people not to congregate. We've told people to do these various things. And then they said, you know, but it's hard for us to enforce it because we tell people not to and they don't necessarily listen. They suggested that they pay for an off-duty police officer to enforce all of the regulations that they have. They've said that they've tried to comply. They're making efforts to comply, but they can't physically remove people from the premises. I received a lengthy email on this and how they want to work with us and do everything that they can, and that was their suggestion. When I broached the chief with their email and their suggestion, he thought that it would not be proper to have our off-duty police enforcing their rules. Then my suggestion was, well, perhaps they have private security do it. And if private security has any issues, for example, someone won't leave, they're a trespasser, then our police can get involved and are a neutral party at that point. So those are some of the ideas that they put forward. Subject to your thoughts, I would certainly be happy to communicate with them as to, you know, the chief's suggestion as having them paying for private security to make sure that they're complying in all aspects with the county code, with our cafe permit, outdoor cafe permit, and other regulations. If anybody has
Also,
any
this,
questions.
yeah, I would say I agree with the chief. I think they should be paying for private security, and as needed, they can call the police. And at the same time, that doesn't preclude our officers from stopping by there a little bit more frequently as they continue their patrols, and just as they stop by, just going ahead and continuing to enforce.
So I've talked to the owner of I've stopped by, I've talked to the owner. I've been there at nighttime. I have to say that I think it would behoove them to get a private security to do that. I don't think the waiters are in a position to be, you know, serving and doing everything and making sure that the patrons who are waiting to be seated are actually wearing their masks. And on top of that, they seem to be going over onto other businesses and impeding other businesses who also have the right for seating and for eating. They kind of take over. So I don't think our police officers should be doing it. I think they should hire their own security and have their own security staff do it. You know, our governor's mandate really doesn't let us really enforce it, but I think we should try the best we can to allow us. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? So one of the issues is that there's apparently too many people waiting outside also, so they're congregating. That's one of the issues.
Well,
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to the Japanese restaurant sitting there. So the thing is that they're congregating and then they kind of move over to where the Japanese restaurant is and they start taking up that space while they're waiting, and they're not wearing masks.
Well, the mask is one item. So the
At least it's
That's
not
not
a
a
plane.
it's not plain. So, well, the mask is obviously, that's a problem. But the second issue, I do have an idea. Why don't temporarily? Because again, thank God they do business. I mean, that's a good thing that people want to frequent a restaurant in the town. We want to encourage that, but respectfully, they have to distance and whatnot. Perhaps we could allow the parking spaces to be blocked off, so that's a place where people can actually stand at
But
nighttime.
they're not going to stand in the street.
No,
Yeah.
we can block it off, so that's not a place you can park. It could be coned off, so it's a safe place where people can congregate and socially distance. It's better than in that little walkway. It's that's not fair to the patrons of the restaurant next door, and it's not fair to the patrons that frequent that restaurant.
I'm not sure how.
That's
I'm not so sure how safe it is, and I really don't want to take the liability of essentially inviting people to be on public streets right there, and
Well-
if anything happens.
Right. I also agree with private security. I've had a lot of complaints about that particular restaurant. The placement of the tables. I mean, I have an item on the agenda later on about the agreement that we enter into at the restaurants, but it's not only the placement of the tables, they don't leave a walkway. And then, as has been said, the congregating of the customers or visiting each other's tables and blocking the sidewalk so that pedestrians have to walk through a lot of maskless people.
Well,
Frank, any ideas?
Yes, well, I'll let them propose what they want. What I said to them is they probably need a few, like at, for lack of better terms, Disney World, somewhere for people to stand that aren't all together bunched up. One, and two, having some third party to enforce this, because certainly waiters who want to earn tips are going to be the persons who are going to start scolding people and kicking people out. It's just
think-
not going to happen.
We should have ropes, how like
Yeah,
Then
like at
you
Disney.
have ADA issues, so we don't want to block the walkway.
I
well
have a
let me ask you a question.
wait, Kelly has a suggestion. Hold on, Jordan. Go ahead, Kelly.
I actually like the concept of Jordan's idea to give up a space, but I've walked around there and it's completely landscaped. It's very hard to get from the spaces in front. And then there's a bulb out that's kind of close to it if you look. So the
Yeah.
storefront that is just west of there, I think it's the beauty salon, right? The Jade or something. So they're closed at night, and then you have Bay Harbor Drugs. So if it's possible that we can let them scooch over to the west and have, a waiting area, even some tables, if it's okay with those businesses.
Bay Harbor Drugs, I've talked to them about something. They do not want tables in front of their store.
Well,
because-
it wouldn't need to be just them, because it's more the beauty salon is the next business, but, just to sort of, give people another direction to go to.
Right.
Because the Japanese restaurant, they don't have anything right now to the east. I think the Pura Vida is going to have some tables or something, but towards the corner. So we have to keep that in mind too.
Right. So unfortunately, they're already taking up where the beauty parlor is, because we've had to spread them out. The beauty parlor has allowed them already to put tables there. I mean, they're going to have to get, I'm in agreement with private security and having them, have to enforce and help. But
Let me ask you a question. What if we put what if at their expense they put in like a barricade to separate those parking spaces so people can safely stand there? Is that, I mean, realistically, you want people
Maria.
to frequent a place.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question, please?
yes,
Frank,
go
are we
ahead.
allowed to even consider that, considering it's a state route, it's FDOT owned?
There have been many restaurants that I've seen all over on state streets that have taken the parking spaces that belong or to the towns or municipalities, that have put the orange, the heavy duty barriers to allow for tables or persons who wait for tables. I've seen it all over.
Do we need to
and
get approval from FDOT?
I don't think we necessarily need to for the parking space, as long as it's within that parking space. We could certainly query them, but as long as it's within the spaces in which cars would otherwise occupy, I don't necessarily think that there's an issue because those are our parking spaces. We control.
Okay, we
collect money,
we have, wait,
the
one
like.
second. We have public comment.
Yeah.
Alba, please.
Yeah, Mayor, before we continue, I just wanted to clarify, but you brought it up. The meat bar did get authorization from the salon next door, which is by Angels, and they did provide a certificate of liability for in front of their store. So they are utilizing a portion of that to extend their outdoor seating so they can abide by the social distancing.
Okay. Well, who do we have for public comment,
We have
please?
Linda.
Okay, Linda, please state your name and address for the record, and you need to unmute yourself, please.
Former Mayor Linda Silver, 1231 95th Street, West Island. I had occasion to go to the drugstore. Number one, their tables are in front of the walkway where you have to get from the car to the sidewalk. Number two, to go to a drugstore, I don't want to walk through a crowd of people that don't have a mask on. This is very dangerous to all of us, especially to the citizens of Bay Harbor.
Thank you. Alba, anybody else?
Yes, Mrs. Newhut.
Ms. Newhut, state your name and address for the record, and please unmute yourself.
Francis Newhut, 1060 Kane Concourse. Last month, January 15, 2021, while walking along Bay Harbor Terrace, I was chased by a Bal Harbor Religious Day School security guard carrying a gun. I went to our police department and discussed this incident with our new chief of police. Since in the police report, this particular security guard who was carrying a gun gave false accusations. We have well-trained Bay Harbor Island police officers to watch over our town residents and their children. We also have off-duty trained police officers that can be hired if and when they are needed. We don't need outside security guards carrying guns in our community. Therefore, I'm asking council to please allow only our well-trained off-duty police officers to provide security at both our RKB public school and at the private tax-exempt Religious Day School, instead of them hiring outside Bal Harbor security guards equipped with guns. I would like to mention that this incident probably would not have happened if council did not eliminate council public hearings and public discussion with our town residents on such matters as safety, traffic flow, blocking public roads during after-school pickup, limited off-street parking spaces, impact on using our parks, and other already crowded recreational facilities, and having to wear masks and distancing during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm speaking of religious institutions because they have special preference here. Also, with the elimination and shortage of off-street municipal parking in the town's business district, there should possibly be public discussion limiting these tax-exempt religious day schools and religious institutions coming from Bal Harbor and Surfside and opening on the ground floor of our town's business districts. Business district. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, Alba?
Yes, we have Rabbi Shagalo.
Rabbi, if you can unmute yourself, I would appreciate that. And please state your name and address for the record. Rabbi?
Might be frozen.
Right.
See his
Okay.
picture.
Right. And he
Yeah.
unmuted
I
himself.
think so, yeah, he's unmuted. I think he's having some type of technical issues.
Was there anybody else? We can come back to the rabbi
Yeah.
once he fixes the technical issues.
Anyone else? Alba?
No, that is all for public comment.
Okay,
Okay,
so
we
now
can-
what do
Well, let's continue, and then when the rabbi fixes his issues, we can let
Yeah,
him
he
speak.
can come back and speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Frank, anything else?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, so council.
We're on item
reports.
1.
No,
Oh,
we haven't done the
reports?
council reports yet.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Okay,
You have a
Jordan,
town
start.
clerk. You actually have a town clerk report, Madam.
Oh,
Right.
Is
Okay,
it
town
important
clerk.
report?
Number 1, like I said.
All right, Alba.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, yes.
Um,
please.
An announcement of a public hearing scheduled for March 10th, 2021 at 6 p.m. to discuss requests for Brownfield area designation for property located at 1000 King Concourse, Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, 33154.
Right.
Mayor, this is just to announce the public hearing to pretty much discuss public comment with regards to this request.
Okay,
Great
perfect.
job.
Thank you. Okay, council reports. Jordan,
Oh,
short and
just,
sweet.
Well, short and sweet is thank you very much for attending the meeting. And I hope everyone's safe, COVID-free.
Thank you. Bob?
Hello?
My very little report, I continue to attend Miami-Dade County League of City meetings where every 2 weeks or so where we just discuss the, COVID numbers and the relationship with the mayor and just so that the municipalities can give each other feedback as to how we're dealing with this and, vaccines and so forth. That's it.
Kelly?
I've got a couple of things. First, I think the town is doing a really good job with COVID and all the different initiatives. The staff is working very hard. I've been making suggestions and they always get on it right away. We started with testing, then applying to be, a vaccination site.
Oh.
And I can stop if we want to let the rabbi speak.
Rabbi?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut in. First of all, I wanted to say to everybody that this town is a blessing. It is a pleasure. It is a pleasure to be part of this town. And not only is it a pleasure to be part of this town, as my wife, at the age of just about 60, decided to open a local business here, it is the greatest and the most beautiful energetic vibes that we get daily from everybody in this town. And it's really, really special. We love it. The police department, each one of them is a gem. Each one of them is special to us. And each one of the council members, the ones that at least I had the opportunity to meet and my wife to meet, it's wonderful. It is really, we want to thank the Almighty for the fact that we have this opportunity at this age to feel this good in this town and to be welcomed by each one of not only the town members, but by people with so much blessing to us and with so much wonderful kindness and gentle feelings towards us. Thank you, first of all. Having had said that, I just wanted to make one comment if possible.
Please.
Everything is wonderful, but we opened up in the time of a pandemic and we're working as hard as we can so that we should be able to suffice and to please everybody possible. I will give an example of today, and this is why I decided to speak the second half of my speech. With great gentleness, it was mentioned to us that we have a rack of some clothing that sits outside in the front of our store, and we understand that according to the specifications, it does not belong there. But the way how our little business is situated, that if there's nothing showing in the front that we are existent, many people pass. And I have documented and videotaped for many, many times through our camera system to see that I'm saying the right thing. To make a long story short, it was requested from us to bring it in, and I brought it in for about 4 hours. In those 4 hours, my wife and I were sitting to watch and see that not one person with all the lights that we have turned their head either to the right or to the left to look at the store. I took the liberty to stand outside and to hold one item in my hand, 20 people asked, "Oh, you guys have a children's store?" And these are some of the people that walked past. I'm not asking to be different. I'm just asking for courteousness. Whatever it takes for us to be able to apply so that we should be able to have something directly in front of our store. The fact that they asked to take things off the window, no problem. To run the window correctly, but something that small, just so that people can feel that, you know what? Hey, listen, this is a clothing store. Because I looked at it and I said to my wife, honey, if God forbid we go through this, we're closing in 2 weeks. And again, because we're trying to market as much as we can, but unfortunately, this is part of the nature of this business at this time, is so people should see it tangibly. And again, our window is not the best window, but nonetheless, we love to be here. We want to continue being here, being part of this beautiful, beautiful place. And once again, thank you for the time, and God bless everybody. Incredible.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you.
Frank, what can we do? Because we do want to support as many businesses, and we don't want to see businesses leave. I do know for myself, because I walk up and down the streets, I know exactly which store now he owns, because I saw the kids' clothing on a small little rack in front of his thing, and it drew me to that store. So what can the council do, or what can we do to support businesses and make sure that, you know, we don't do anything that is going to cause a problem, but at the same time support and attract so that our businesses can prosper?
Sure.
Any suggestions?
So I'd like an opportunity to speak with the town clerk and the code enforcement to discuss the code and see what can be done. I don't want to give you an opinion off the top of my head because it's something I don't really work with all the time, and certainly would want to have an opportunity to discuss it with staff.
Is there an active
So-
case?
So, well, more importantly, is there anything we can do temporarily while we figure this all out so that he actually can do something, so that he can actually promote his business?
Right. I mean, my question would be, I think following up on, on the mayor's comment, can we temporarily, obviously during COVID right now, temporarily suspend that portion of the code and allow for, it wouldn't be specific to his business, but allow for clothing racks. I mean, one clothing rack. I don't think we want multiple
one.
out for one clothing rack
Correct.
per retail store allowed on the walkway, as long as it's not obstructing the walkway.
I'm in agreement with you. I think right now we need to do everything we possibly can to support our businesses. We don't want anybody to close and any new businesses to close.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay,
If there's
Frank.
something we can do.
Yeah,
Frank,
so
can we do that?
again, I think that you can have some deviations. Let's just say, I think you can work within the code to permit and help businesses. For example, the restaurants, we've allowed for them to have more tables outside to promote that, to make sure that businesses can stay in. I have a feeling we were able to do that as well. I honestly can't point to the code right now. I mean, I feel like I know the code backwards and forwards. However, I think this could possibly be like the exception that we allow, where we have restaurants have signage outside, like the soup boards. I forget the name of it. They're
The sandwich.
Yeah,
Sandwich.
sandwich
Mhm.
boards and stuff.
Right.
And I think this could be something similar to that, that could be done for a period of time. But again, I'd like to discuss it with, I've often realized that, I have great communication with staff and your town manager daily, if not 2 to 3 times. And I'd rather have the discussion with staff as to how to accommodate that. But we certainly know that the town council would like to do that.
Okay,
In
so
the
if
meantime,
we,
but
yeah,
in the meantime, can we also tell code enforcement to ease,
Well,
while we figure this code and allow them to do this so that they can actually have business.
So
Well,
I
here's the
think
thing,
if
I
you're
I
saying
can
the
just say
direction
something,
is- if I
Mayor.
might, if I think that if what you're saying, the direction of council is that you'd like to provide accommodations where you can to allow businesses to thrive during this very hard time, that's something that we could look at on a uniform basis that's applicable to
Right.
everyone. But
Right.
I'll let
Okay.
Alba speak.
Alba?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna mention that I did have a request from a beauty salon wanting to put in like a little sandwich board similar to what the restaurants have. And that is something that is only permitted currently on the code for restaurants. So if we're wanting to extend it for the rabbi, I mean, obviously it's the council's direction that we can, you know, like Frank said, do it for all the other stores as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's, let me just say this, I think it's the
Beauty
council's,
salons.
let's just be clear. I think, I mean, tell me if everybody, if you agree, but I think it's the council's direction that we allow, or we ask that Frank and Alba speak, find out a way to provide some relief to all the retail businesses. And
Okay.
specific to each industry, they can either put the sandwich board or they can put one rack of clothing. All of, whatever they need to do, as long as, again, it doesn't obstruct the walkway, I have no problem with it.
Okay,
And
so I
also
just
Agreed.
tell,
wanna, if I
and
can get some,
also tell code enforcement to take a step back as we try to work this out.
Well, I think a better way to phrase it is we authorize the manager to do that right now. And if it needs to come back to us next month for any action or vote, we can do that in a formal meeting, knowing that there's going to be no citations, no warnings, that between now and the next meeting, if there needs to be a vote, they can just do it, and we authorize the manager to do that.
Or if they have to cite anything we do would be retroactive. So we could change
Yeah.
it, and so it would waive anything that's before.
Yeah, for the
I think-
record, Stephanie, can I add something here?
Sure.
I think rather than just saying, okay, it's the, you know, a clothing rack is okay for the rabbi's business, I think we should, give the attorney direction to craft, either a change in the ordinance or an addition to the ordinance that allows all retail stores to have some manner of display in front of their businesses that doesn't obstruct the walkway, that's a certain dimension by a certain dimension, and let him run with that.
That works.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I have a question. Can
Yes.
we call it, would it help, Frank, if we called it like, a period of time emergency measures and
Yeah.
made it very all-inclusive, and then say we revisit it in 6 months, and if we're still in a pandemic, then we extend it past that?
Correct.
Yeah, we
I
may
think-
actually be able to, perhaps even the better way of doing it, because I'm looking at the code, specifically section 1720, exterior signs. And we may be able to do it by perhaps an executive order, like we've done a couple for the mayor as well, concerning 1720 exterior signs and items that may be permitted there, so that it's only applicable during the state of emergency, which I believe is what you really want to do. And
Right.
perhaps
Right.
that's the best way of doing it.
So is everybody in agreement? Because then I will sign
Yes.
it
Yes.
immediately.
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
so
Well,
Good.
We'll
Okay.
craft it and have everybody, and I'll
I
work
will
with
sign it. I'll sign it immediately, and that way we can cover all this.
So
Perfect.
it's good to know that we're helping them.
Right.
It's good that it came up.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah. I have-
Okay, Josh.
Okay, I'll
Wait,
do this
I
quick.
was still doing my
Oh,
count.
I'm sorry.
I apologize. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's right. Anyways, as I was just saying, the town's doing a great job on all the COVID measures, testing, applying to be a vac site. And I noticed that the county and some cities were doing outreach to homebound seniors. And even though, seniors could possibly get that by accessing the county, a lot of these services are just on the website. They can call 311. But I would really like us to do some outreach, if it means, looking at our lists that the police department maintains for evacuations, and letting the seniors know, maybe putting something in the newsletter, telling them at the very least, call 311, and that there's a possibility they could have the paramedics come and, give them a vaccine in their home. So I know the manager has staff working on that. So I'm very excited about that. Also, I noticed that the legislature and some towns are starting to warn about the attack again on the short-term vacation rentals and the town's ability to regulate them. So some towns are asking their citizens to write to their legislators to express themselves. They're providing the information for the committees. And I can provide that if you think that's something that we want to advertise, because this is a huge threat to the neighborhood.
I do.
Yes.
I would love to do that.
Okay.
Kelly,
Yeah.
I did talk to our lobbyists about the short-term rental bill that's being considered and asked him to make sure to follow it and to express our opposition. I also filled out a witness slip on that in opposition of the bill.
Okay, terrific. Then, in addition to Marlene's retirement this month, Curtis Johnson, Lieutenant Johnson, has also retired. He will be working as a reserve, so I know he really wanted to help with the police chief transition, and so we'll still see him around, but he is officially retired. And then on a sad and somber note, we all saw the horrible FBI shooting and 2 agents who were killed. And, you know, if you don't know, 2 were also injured. And then I believe, you know, at the Capitol, there was also, you know, the horrible instance where 1 officer was killed and then 2 more committed suicide later because of the stress. So, you know, these are both awful, unacceptable situations, and especially the local FBI shooting in Sunrise, where the perpetrator was a well-armed pedophile, you know, who had been in possession of child pornography. And that's so close to our hearts with our school, of course, all of our residents there. So I just wanted to recognize those heroes, and, you know, what a shame that is. And also just, you know, for us to keep that in mind when, you know, we think of our own police department, and that we have a lovely, safe neighborhood for the most part, but we never know when, you know, we had a shooting. It was people who came through and, you know, weren't intending to come to Bay Harbor. But as lovely and as safe as it is, at any time, awful tragedies like that could befall us here in our own town. So I know that the previous chief and the current chief, you know, they dictate their training and their policies by having that always in mind, and you know, it really brought it home. And that said, I know tomorrow is a negotiation session for the contract, and it looks really good after speaking to the manager. And I'm hoping that it'll be the last one, and that, you know, we can also show our appreciation to our officers. And I think we will. I think everybody's worked really hard to get through that. So thank you.
Kelly, we actually had to move it 1 week, but we're making a lot of progress, and I'll talk to you about it tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Josh.
Okay, real
Thank you,
quickly.
Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. I definitely appreciate those sentiments that you made for the officers. Following up on just a couple things, I just wanted to say one more thing. When I met with Commissioner Hayman, after speaking with her, we have to give kudos to Maria and her staff. Sally made it very clear, Commissioner Hayman made it very clear that of all our municipalities, apparently we were the only municipality that appropriately filed and submitted for reimbursements as required under CARE Act and everything else, and that we are the only one that's getting the full amount. And that was because everything was well done by Maria and her staff. So I do appreciate that and congratulate Maria on doing that wonderful.
Congrats.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Great on paperwork.
Yeah, they're fantastic. The other 2 quick things I would ask staff to look into 2 things. Alba, I contacted you because I guess last week, because there was a pressure cleaning. The old chocolatier, the building was being pressure cleaned, and paint chips were flying all over and going into the drainage and going up the street. I know you got them to stop it, but walking there a day or 2 later, there was still paint chips all over there. I would ask you that, you know, one, we make sure that they clean it up at their expense before we have more environmental issues. And also, I think that we need to keep enforcing the idea that if anybody is going to be pressure cleaning for removal of paint, that they are responsible right off the bat to make sure those things are cleaned up properly and not just flushed into the bay.
Josh, can I make a comment about that? On Saturday when they were doing it, they like pulled police tape at a low level across the sidewalk to stop people, you know, from walking where they were doing the pressure cleaning. You know, it was a trip hazard. You know, people were stepping over it and so forth to get to the restaurants. And if something like that's going on, we need some supervision out there.
Yeah, and especially that on a Saturday, that's considered construction work. That's not a repair. That's a construction work. If code enforcement doesn't see it, the police officers have to go in and stop it. And I need to see that a lot more because I am seeing a lot more activities that are happening outside of hours of where code enforcement would normally be.
Josh, I actually authorized that because they said it needed to be done because of all the traffic during the week, and they wanted to get it done quickly. So we actually gave them permission to do it last weekend. And they might have to do it because they wanted to do it quickly, and that was the only way to get it done.
Okay, that's fine, but I don't want to, I'm glad that you told us that, but I would like that if they're going to go back, and even if they're out, they need to do it properly and they need to clean up what they've left all over, because all week there's been paint chips all over the street.
Okay.
And there needs to be some proper supervision.
Yeah.
Okay.
And finally, the last thing also, I would ask, Alba, I guess this you as well again, maybe Maria as well. Tico, as they've been redoing some of their, I guess, I don't know what part of their piping or whatever else, I think to the west, I don't know if they're doing it in the East Island yet. They're going back step by step. And as they drill into it, it is their responsibility to repair the road above it. They usually do a temporary, and then they send their crews out to do the final, but their final product is substandard. And everywhere where they've done it, I've seen there are puddles of water that are forming because it is below grade. So I'd ask you to have somebody go out, take a look to make sure they did it properly. And if they didn't do it properly, have them redo it.
And this is Tico Gas, you said?
This is Tico when they're drilling into the roads.
Don't they pull a permit for that?
No.
They don't pull a permit for that?
I
believe they do it. I would have to check with the building official.
I think they're supposed to.
They're supposed to, but then the problem is it's when they're fixing it, they just do they do a temporary, and then they have their final crew come out afterwards, but it's not being done at a high level. It looks different, and there are puddles forming. But
If you could just give me Mayor, I have a staff member that wishes to comment on the item.
Who?
Doug.
Doug, please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Oh, there he is.
Hi. A lot of their work is considered emergency work. That's why they don't pull permits on a lot of things. But they do pull permits on the like new services. So we do see those, and I do meet with them on site before they even do the service connections. But the emergencies, they just come out and do it. It's like FPL coming out and fixing a transformer or something, although they don't tear up the road. But I'll look at those patches again, and I'll call the people responsible if they look like they're not working properly. Do you have one particular in mind, Mr. Fuller?
Yeah, I'll speak to you after and show you, but I've seen it on a couple where, like I said, I mean, they have to do their emergency work. That's fine. I'm just saying when they do the repair, it should be back up to the right level. So I'll talk to you after and show you.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the only thing that I would like is I've had some phone calls from people who either need to get vaccinated or need some assistance. And because they have difficulties getting onto the computer and actually accessing the ability, even though they're age appropriate, I would love to see at the community center, we have the staff, if we can maybe promote twice a week during the day that, seniors can go in there and that somebody can sit with them and actually help them on the computers to get them the access that they need, whatever the access is, because a lot of seniors do not know how to, maneuver through the web. Maria, if you could, ask the staff in there to organize it and promote it, I would really appreciate that. Does anybody have a problem with that? No?
Maybe you could do a little computer class, like gather them around, because the problem is, Stephanie, that you can't always access, like they announce it. So you can't just go sign up at any time. I think, they're getting better at it, and now they have some phone numbers at Dade County too. But yeah, we should definitely promote help.
Almost like a help place. So like they know twice a week, no matter whether it's, whatever it is, that they have somebody there to help them access the web.
I will check I will relay their message to staff. We'll work on it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. Let's go to consent agenda.
I'll move it.
Do you want to do public comment, Mayor?
Oh yeah, I forgot. We're running so late. Okay, public comment. Linda, please unmute yourself.
Well, first of all, I had my hand raised a few times. And I want to also thank Marlene for all of her work that she's done throughout the years here and all the help she gave me when I was mayor. The other thing, in case the rabbi is listening, when it gets to the point that he can't have his clothesline outside, he might want to put a little bench with 3 dolls wearing some of the children's clothes sitting on the bench that people could see. Those were just some of the things that I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else, Alba?
At this time, we don't have any others.
Okay, so then let's go to consent agenda. Jordan?
I'll move it.
And second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Number 9, please.
9
No.
or, no, 10.
10.
10, sorry.
Did a great
10.
job on 9. 10.
Consideration approval of an ordinance on second reading, providing the local implementation of the mandatory year-round irrigation conservation measures rule of the South Florida Water Management District. Closes a copy of the proposed ordinance.
An ordinance of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, providing for local implementation of the mandatory year-round landscape irrigation conservation measures rule of the South Florida Water Management District 40E-24 FAC, providing definitions, providing for the applicability of the ordinance, providing for the landscape irrigation schedule, providing for exceptions of the landscape irrigation schedule, providing for a requirement to operate technology that inhibits or interrupts an irrigation system during periods of sufficient moisture, providing for variances from the specific day of the week limitations, providing for enforcement of the ordinance, providing for penalties of violation of the ordinance, providing for codification of the ordinance, providing for the repeal of all conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
I'll move it.
Second,
I have a question,
yes.
if I may. So under section 23 or 2039 penalties, there are blank spaces for, the penalty for first violation and second violation. I mean, shouldn't that be filled in? I mean, the third violation is fine not to exceed $500. Second violation is blank. And first is written warning or a fine not to exceed blank.
Yeah, so we were looking for guidance there. We would generally put 150, 250, and 500 if that's acceptable to you.
Yes,
That's fine.
that's
That's
fine.
fine.
That's fine.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Alba, poll vote.
Well, is there any comment?
Any comment?
No public comment at this time.
Okay.
Councilmember Yaffe,
Four.
Councilmember Salver,
4.
Councilmember Reed,
4.
Councilmember Leonard,
4.
Vice Mayor Fuller,
4.
Mayor Bruder.
4.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Okay. Number 11.
Okay, consideration approval of an ordinance on first reading requested by Councilmember Leonard, amending Chapter 24 of the Town Code relating to Florida-friendly fertilizer use within the town, and closes the copy of the proposed ordinance.
An ordinance of the Council of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, amending Chapter 24 of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands Code entitled Property Maintenance Standards to create Section 24-16.1 thereof to be entitled Use of Fertilizer relating to the Florida-friendly fertilizer use within the Town of Bay Harbor Islands, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for an effective date.
I'll move it.
Second.
Yeah,
Any
it's,
discussion?
I'll just mention briefly, besides it being a tongue twister for Florida-friendly fertilizer, there is no fluoride. This was something that I got the idea from our sister city in Miami Beach. They passed a very similar ordinance recently about it. It probably got a little bit of attention and press because it related to golf courses in addition to the city. Which obviously does not pertain to us because we don't have a golf course, but the theory still holds true that we need to protect the bay, and obviously anything that runs off from the town runs into the bay. So by doing this, we're going to be protecting the environment, so which is important. So that's why I'm bringing it up.
Perfect. Any public comments, Alba?
No public comment, Mayor.
Okay, this is also a poll vote.
Councilmember Yaffe,
4.
Councilmember Salver,
4.
Councilmember Reed,
4.
Councilmember Leonard,
4.
Vice Mayor Fuller,
4.
Mayor Bruder.
4.
It's unanimous.
Okay, number 12, please.
12, consideration and approval of an ordinance on first reading approving budget amendment number 1 for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Close the copy of the proposed ordinance and other supporting documents.
An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, approving budget number 1 for the fiscal year 2021-2021 budget, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date.
I'll
I'll
move
move
it.
it.
I'll second it. Okay, Alba, any public comment?
Yes. We have
Okay.
Mrs. Newhart.
Mr. Newhart, please unmute yourself and give your name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes.
Francis Newhart, 1060 Kane Concourse. I know it's COVID, but still, there should be some money in the bank. Especially, we see these high rises going up and TDRs. It says here that TDR system, the town to receive millions of dollars in funds for town-related projects, as well as the parking trust. The question is, where's the money? I mean, we're asking for lights, and I heard that even that we can't even barely afford. And especially when these kids are out there doing nothing and they depend on the lights to at least have the parks open a decent hour after school. And you know that they're limited with the daylight savings time. So you managed to do it at the school where nobody can use anything after 6 o'clock and it's only used for the school. And I hope you're not going to do that with the parks as well. Thank you.
Well, first of all, we didn't say we didn't have the money. What we said was that we would like an accounting of what is our impact fees from the parks so that we know how much money we actually have. And if we don't have enough money, we could budget for it, as that is the correct way of doing it. But thank you so much for your input. Anybody else, Alba?
No further comments.
Okay. Poll vote, please.
Councilmember Yapi,
4.
Councilmember Salver,
4.
Councilmember Reed,
4.
Councilmember Leonard,
4.
Vice Mayor Fuller,
4.
Mayor Bruder.
4.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Number 13, please.
Consideration approval to award $185,500 to Kinley Horn Engineering to provide a scope and fee proposal request for upsizing from 15-inch to 18-inch the town's sanitary sewer main from manhole 66, 9600 block of Bay Harbor Terrace to the town's main lift station. Kinley Horn has lowered the price for the service from $217,500. The price presented to the council on January 13, 2021. This is a reduction of $32,000. Details and attachments are provided.
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay. Alba, any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, poll vote, please.
Councilmember Leonard,
4.
Councilmember Reed,
4.
Councilmember Salver,
4.
Councilmember Yapi,
4.
Vice Mayor Fuller,
4.
Mayor Bruder.
4.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Number 14, please.
Consideration approval of a scope and fee proposal by Lakes Engineering in the amount of $258,000 to provide the town with inspection, design, pre and post bid services, bill analysis, contract recommendation, and CIS services for repairs to the Intercoastal Waterway Bridge identified in the annual bridge inspection report conducted by Marlin Engineering in January 2020.
I'll move it.
Second. Thank you. Alba, any public comment?
No public comment, Mayor.
Okay, poll vote, please.
Councilmember Leonard,
4.
Councilmember Reed,
4.
Councilmember Salver,
4.
Councilmember Yapi,
4.
Vice Mayor Fuller,
4.
Mayor Bruder.
4.
It's unanimous.
Number 15, please.
Consideration approval to extend the current contract with LMK Pipe Renewal LLC until September 30, 2021 in the amount of $250,000 to continue lining sewer laterals throughout the town, and close the copy of the letter submitted by LMK for contract extension.
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay, any public comment, Alba?
No public comment, Mayor.
Okay, this does not require a poll vote. All those in
Yeah, it
favor?
does.
It does.
does?
It does.
I don't have it on
Yes.
mine.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, poll vote.
Councilmember Yaffe,
4.
Councilmember Salver,
Or,
Councilmember Reed,
4.
Councilmember Leonard,
4.
Vice Mayor Fuller,
4.
Mayor Bruder.
4.
Unanimous.
Number 16, please.
Consideration approval for a two-year extension of contract by 183, landscape and irrigation maintenance and Brightview Landscaping Services. Brightview has worked closely with the town staff over the past 3 months to improve their service. Attaches a formal written request from Brightview and a letter stating the actions they have taken to improve their services to the town.
I'll move it.
Let me ask one thing.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Frank, just, my recollection is that in the original contract, we have the ability to terminate it with under the 2 years, correct? If we have a problem, we can terminate it early.
Yep.
Yes, I believe
Okay,
so.
thanks. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Okay, thanks.
It's the same as the original one, which is with a month's notice, I think.
Right, exactly. That's what I thought it was. I just wanted to confirm. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else from the council? Nope.
Nope.
Okay.
No public
Abla.
comment, Mayor.
No public? Okay, it's been, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so 17 is out, 18 is out, so we know it's been deferred. 19 is deferred, 20 is deferred, so
No,
21.
19 we did. 19
Oh,
we
We did
did.
19.
Right.
We did 19. We're
20,
on 21.
So now we are at 21.
Just a minute, I'm trying to get to them, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, 21. Discussion requested by Councilmember Yaffe regarding the restaurants outdoor seating.
Thank you. So, we talked about this earlier in the meeting. I was just concerned about the difficulty in enforcing the outdoor seating and the violations of the agreements by some of the restaurants. Frank, I appreciated the letter that you sent to Meat Bar, but I wanted perhaps, Frank, that if you take a look at the agreement and that the town is using to make sure that you think it's appropriate and tough enough and has enough enforcement provisions in there. And I'd like to see the town enforce the agreement, I guess more aggressively. We waited a long time with Meat Bar before a letter went out to them. And I've seen, some of the other restaurants violate, this agreement as well. I mean, I'm all for as much outdoor seating as possible, but, there needs to be pedestrian access. And I've seen some of the other restaurants block it off as well. So I want to make sure we're on top of it. And I want to make sure, Frank, that you think that the agreement as written is appropriate or sufficient.
Okay, so I think, Frank, you've been given direction to make sure that it's unilaterally across all the different businesses and that the letter should be strong. Kelly.
Yeah. Another issue that came up, because I understand that we wanted to enforce very consistently, which is usually a good idea when we don't have an emergency. Some of the businesses have tables that are not exactly on Kane Concourse. They might be on the side. Could be, like the walkway between Jackie Abraham and the bistro. There are some tables there. It could be on the other side of the Japanese restaurant. There's a little walkway in there as well. But I'm asking that you can also relax the requirement that all the tables come in. They should come in off of Kane Concourse, but in some cases they're actually on private property. And while we have limited indoor seating and need to supplement with the outdoor, I would like to see that also included in this emergency order.
Makes sense.
And I agree with that, Kelly. I mean, I had seen a number of occasions where some of the restaurants left them out at night on the sidewalk, blocking the sidewalk, really pretty much a mess and
Right.
hindering pedestrian access. One of the restaurants for a while was leaving their, what do they call it? The umbrella bases in the
umbrellas.
middle of the sidewalk. So just as long as we are enforcing and code enforcement is going out there, particularly on the weekends, to make sure that there aren't any hazardous conditions being left out there.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a possibility, Frank, if you could look into it, that if, the council pleased, to maybe make that, bringing of the tables in specific to the Kane Concourse FDOT easement and not private property in some cases, maybe on a case-by-case basis?
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't fit.
Maria?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the other thing we've noticed, like today I was walking on Kane Concourse, the dance studio has a flag right there on the on where the planting area is. If we're going to do this executive order to allow flags as well, that's I don't know how you feel about that, but I did notice that today.
And some of the restaurants has them as well. They're like those banners that stand up
Right.
so that we know that they're there. Right. That's fine.
That can be their one item. Yeah, that's whatever.
Right.
it is.
That could be their one item that they're allowed to put out. Okay, perfect. All right, so now we are at 20.
Mayor, we do have public comment.
Oh, we
and-
do? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Go
we
ahead.
do have public comment for this, but I just wanted to get the clear direction from the council when it comes to the outdoor seating. So we're allowing for those tables and chairs to continue to stay outside, but the
But not on
bistro-
King,
but not on the King
but not
Concourse.
King Concourse.
Right, so the only
Right,
two
anything that
exceptions
is
that
on-
I can think of right now, it's only the bistro and coffee break. So those two.
And
will be
as long as they don't block entrances, the fire and code, and as long as
ADA.
all those ADA,
Right.
as long as we're in compliance with the ADA, fire, and we don't block complete access on and absolutely not on King Concourse. They need to pull the tables.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
They're
You're
Mrs.
welcome.
Newhut, I think she would like to speak.
Ms. Newhut, please unmute yourself and give your name and address for the record.
Francis Newhut, 1060 Kane Concourse. I heard Councilman Yaki did mention that it took a long time for any kind of enforcement over at the meat market. And this goes way back to even the building department with them issuing signs with the grease traps. I mean, this is not just the seating. And unfortunately, you're creating a lot of hate, and it's not good in the restaurant business there. There are people who are very disturbed when they see their restaurants being checked 3 to 5 times a day. And then they go and they're seeing it on themselves. And yes, you will be putting Asia Bay out of business if this keeps up. So either everybody be equal, or else, you're gonna have hostility. You're gonna have hate here. And you're already creating it. I see it already. You treat people differently, and special treatment to specific people, which you've been doing, no question about it. Like I said, you have this guy with the clothing store. Oh, gee, we'll accommodate him. But how many times have you put others out of business because you didn't accommodate them? And I can speak for myself, only I just try my best. But you have your favorites, and it's very noticeable. Thank you.
Anybody else, Alba?
No further comment.
So Frank, I think you've been given direction.
Yes.
And okay, now we will move on to number 22.
Presentation requested by One Kane Concourse LLC for the purpose of discussing possible site plan modifications to the property located at 9551 East Bay Harbor Drive. The proposed modifications would require code amendments to the setbacks, rooftop use, and inclusion of portico for the gateway property. Closed is a copy of the submittal from Mr. Joseph Geller and a staff report provided by Town Planner Michael Miller.
Okay.
And Mayor, Mr. Geller is available to.
Okay. So
You would have Mike go over it first?
yes, Michael, can you go over each one of the different points?
Oh, there he is. Oh, we can't hear you.
Unmute. You gotta unmute.
He is unmuted.
I don't know. We can't hear you.
Volume is all the way up.
Oh,
Okay,
there
now
we
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 go.
can hear you now.
Now,
There we go.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. As you know, the town approved a commercial development on this site some years ago, maybe 10 years ago or so. And they didn't proceed with the construction for various reasons. They've gotten a number of extensions. In 2017, they came before you and asked for another extension and some modifications to the site plan. They had changed the architect, and we approved that. So the plan that's approved meets the current Gateway Zoning District regulations. As to the rooftop uses, there's site plan approval for the Gateway. There is a number of restrictions for the rooftop uses on what can be up there, frequency and so forth. Of course, we also have the charter restriction on activities above 75 feet and enclosing things up there. We can have accessory structures like stair towers, elevator overrides, bathrooms and things like that, but not a habitable space. Just a few months ago now, we were approached by the Tauber family with a partner company from New York that is desirous of partnering with them and building the building. Through that, they expressed a desire to make some modifications, possibly to the site design. Some of those would violate the current zoning regulations and use regulations for the roof and possibly the charter. So we worked to with Mr. Geller to identify those issues. He's prepared a letter to us. I tried to create a little table of the summary of the different regulations on each of the points requested. I went back through my files and copied some of the documents with the features of the site plan. The Gateway properties are supposed to be an important vista, if you will, coming into our community. We purposely wrote the ordinance so the buildings aren't right up on the road, that we have a pedestrian plaza like we have on the main area of Kane Concourse. It continues to the water at each end. And so that's the summary of it. The basket, the kind of breakdown is for the East Bay Harbor Drive frontage, there is a drop-off area for the building and the restaurant. It's a double lane. We approved a very large canopy over that driveway. It doesn't cover 6 feet of the lane closest to East Bay Harbor Drive. They're asking for some consideration to possibly extend that out further over the entire driveway. That's one of the requests. Second is on the waterfront. The code, the old deed restrictions, which was your first zoning code, and the current zoning code requires a 20-foot setback from the water. The plan we approved has a veranda next to the building with a very large canopy over it. They would like permission to close that in permanently to make it air-conditioned space and put additional tables there. As an alternative to you, if you can choose to revise the zoning code, I had said maybe we could allow some kind of roll down things for inclement weather or something from the canopy that's there. It covers fully the veranda right now. It doesn't go to the water. There's still a walkway along the water there. That's the second thing. The third is on Kane Concourse. We have a 20-foot main building setback, and we have a 30-foot pedestrian plaza corridor, if you will, 10 of which is on the bridge with the walkway. There's a small outdoor area next to the building. The site plan does not show any seating there. They would like to put some seating there and also close that in permanently with air-conditioned space to add additional square footage in the building. That would cause us to change the code from the 20-foot setback. They also could extend the canopy out there and have roll down windows for temporary seating if they had overflow is just an option for that. And then lastly, I think is on the roof. There's a trellis on the roof. We definitely allow that as an accessory structure. Our code limits the height to 10 feet above the deck. They would like permission to raise that up 5 feet to 15 feet. We do allow the stair tower and the elevator to be at 20 feet. So, this would, that might be something reasonable. We also have a setback for either a wall of a building up there or a column holding up a trellis of 15 feet. That would not change. The canopy that we approved on the site plan comes out kind of almost to the edge of the building. They would love to enclose that area and create a restaurant on the roof, if you will. I think that's a charter problem. But they also could have the roll down up there for weather and so forth. The partner, if you will, is from New York, where it's very, very urban, and it's not uncommon to have a lot of rooftop, because there's no room elsewhere, to have outdoor restaurants. You see them on Los Olas Boulevard and other places as well. But the town, during the original approval and the 17 amendment, expressed concerns with it being kind of a loud party place, if you will. So we have restrictions for hours of operation, noise for music, and so forth, lighting and so forth. And we do not allow, permanent business operations up there. It was set up to allow tenants in the building to petition the manager's office to consider, if they have an office function or something like that the employees want to go up there from the office space. So it's written pretty restrictive right now. So I think that's a summary of the issues that of the history of the project and focal points of what I heard from the discussions in the letter.
So Mike, can I ask you a question? The rooftop right now, if they wanted to do the roll down, they don't need to come to council for that, correct?
Not in my opinion, no.
Okay.
Nor the veranda on the water. On the Kane Concourse, there's just a 4-foot little eyebrow sticking out, which covers about half of that little outdoor area. They could extend that out over that as well, and have roll downs there too. Okay,
so let me see if I'm following you, so in the rooftop right now it's 15 feet, correct?
The trellis.
The trellis.
The trellis
and
height is limited to 10 feet. They would like to change that to 15 feet. They would also like permission to close in the trellis, if you will, and make it a permanent restaurant on the roof. To me, adding a 8th floor to the building.
But we can't do that by
charter.
I mean, by charter. So that cannot be done because we have a charter that doesn't allow us to do that, because then it becomes an 8th floor, correct?
They could ask for a vote of the people, but yes, it's a charter.
Yes, but as long as it was a roll down, in your opinion, they don't even need to come to council to ask.
Because the trellis is already, the columns that hold up the trellis are placed properly. The trellis cantilevers out to the edge of the roof in some places. Then they could easily add one of the, you see them everywhere, where it's like a clear plastic thing, then it rolls down and you can secure it to the ground, to the, whatever's around there, so it's not flapping around, and it gives you kind of overflow space. You're outside, but if it's raining or whatever, then you have some protection from that.
Right. But Stephanie, they need to come to us for the use. That's the issue.
Well, right, that's like a separate issue, but we need to figure out, like, in other words, they want to know if we would allow them to extend the portiche over the building. Right now, I think they can get one car, right, and they have a double. I mean, when I looked at it, it's double, but it doesn't cover. So if you're driving in there and you're if you're
Outside
driving,
lane, yeah.
you're on the outside lane, you're getting wet, basically.
Right.
Is that correct, Mike? I mean, everything I read. So that what they want to do is they want to cover the whole thing. So I guess we need to figure out what we're comfortable with and give directions to Mike Miller, and I guess ask Mr. Geller any questions that we want.
Well, let me ask one thing real quick, because I went through all the materials and I saw the diagrams and everything. And Mike, I just have, when I went through it, I think a lot of these things are reasonable requests. I don't really have a problem with a lot of this, especially considering we just got off a long conversation about encouraging the growth of more businesses up and down Kane Concourse. My only concern would be potential liability for the town later on for where they're getting closer to the bridge. With the drop in the setback. I just want your feelings, because the only thing I would really want from them, and actually I guess this goes to Frank as well, I would want to hold harmless agreements that if we at some point are doing work on the bridge, well, we always are, that any damage is caused because they are now closer than they were for the original setback, that they're picking up that bill. I just don't want the town to be liable for that. Other than that, I don't have a problem with anything.
I have a question.
You mean to indemnify us or to provide?
Yeah, it's an indemnification. It's a hold harmless indemnification.
Okay.
Because in other words, as you're getting closer to the bridge, as we do work near the bridge, I don't want them coming back and saying, well, we damaged something, that's only 5 feet away and we wouldn't have been damaged if it was 10 feet. Other than that, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Kelly.
My concern was, and I'm kind of thinking out loud here. So we have 4 gateway properties, right? The other 2 are hotels, and then we own the 4th one. So there really won't be another one like completely rebuilt and developed. This is the last one that's being built. So I was concerned that if we change the code, that it would affect the other gateways. It would be consistent with all of them, but changing the code would really only affect this one essentially, correct?
Could write it that way, narrowly. This is the only one of the gateway sites that actually has commercial land use plan underneath.
Right.
The other 2 are residential comp plan land use, and by PUD we allow the hotels.
But at the trip, they have like the little restaurant on the side as well. What I'm thinking is, are the other 2 hotels now going to want to extend their verandas and do all that? And will this ordinance allow them to?
You don't know that. If you change the ordinance, they would be entitled to that. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
but let me ask you a question. I mean, we've done this before where we've had special exceptions for each individual property in the gateway, because the gateway are such individual, unique properties that we've had special, rules for each specific property. So why would this be any different where if we approved it for this specific property? I mean, for example, this parcel runs, up until the water, but where the bridge is, it's obviously you can physically see and have the bridge right up against their property line, which is not, that's obviously a very unique situation, especially for the type of project that they want to do. None of the other gateways have this dilemma because it's a very different buildings. I don't understand why we actually have to change the code, since we're actually, just allowing for this one property if we are in support of it.
well, we have to change the code. Otherwise, they can't do it.
Well, unless it's a variance here, but let me just ask one more thing. And Frank, you should answer that in a second, but I also want to say that when we talk about, for example, like the Trip or actually for both hotels, if you remember, we gave them certain abilities to build additional rooms in exchange for other things that they gave in. So in this instance, for them to make other alterations, I don't necessarily know if it would apply, because we only, for example, I think we gave Grand Beach the ability to add rooms if there was no restaurant on the water.
Right.
So they traded that off already.
Well, what about the ordinance that we enacted over 1177 where we're allowed to trade out certain things? Does that apply to this property?
No,
It's not a gateway. No.
right. Yeah, that was the bonus height. And it was a quid pro quo. They were allowed to build up to 75 feet in exchange for public benefits, Woodford Park and the like.
Right, because their property was 65 originally.
But I thought that the ordinance just allowed us to kind of, let's make a deal, if you will. Or
Not in the gateway.
Not in the gateway.
No,
that's
because it's
only
on the water.
B1.
The deal for that ordinance is that if you're on the interior, it's 65 feet. But if you want to get the extra 10 feet, then you have to actually have a public benefit. They already have 75 feet because they're on the water.
Okay,
Stephanie?
yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
So I just have one question regarding what you've said so far, Michael. I understand from the materials that you provided, the only accessory uses are allowed on the roof. And it sounds like, the current plan is to basically have a restaurant on the roof. Our code doesn't provide for that at this point, I don't believe. And then I would also have some concerns. Now we have a new residential building next door, certain noise issues. I mean, I'm sure they would, the prior approval requires them to provide, comply with the noise ordinance and so forth. But I think that, as we look at the rooftop uses, we need to consider, whether it's actually going to be a restaurant, and if so, how that comports with our code, because we'd have to amend the code as I understand it.
Well, what can they do, Mike? I mean, what could they do hypothetically?
Roof, again, there's stuff in the zoning code, and then there's stuff in the site plan approval that's even more strict. And it was because this was the only project, although a lot of the multifamilies have recreation on the roof, this was a commercial venture. And the discussion that I remember was that they wanted the ability to occasionally use the rooftop for functions linked to staying on the beach in Bal Harbor, for example, or within the building itself. Tenants, they have a function that could go up on the roof and sit there during lunch or after hours, but there were restrictions on the hours of operation, the light spillage, and the noise like music and things like that. The trellis is allowed up there, which is a shade structure that could be made to be more waterproof on the top because it's kind of open. It does provide shade, but it's open. It is not enclosed. The code says that you cannot have a business activity, a permanent business activity operating on the roof or an enclosed structure up there for any habitable space. You can only have the bathrooms as an accessory to a recreational facility. And then you got the charter issues too. So the rooftop is a little more complicated,
Hello?
but also straightforward.
Yes.
Okay.
Cheryl, mute.
Okay.
Let me ask a question
Wait,
though.
so I've been to restaurants up on the roof. I wanted to see what this particular restaurant was all about. So I dragged Harry to this restaurant in West Palm Beach, and I went to see what the outside, sitting was, because this restaurant it's not really about the restaurant, but this restaurant is in New York and Denver, and I wanted to see, how it translates to Florida. So I went there and I saw what the outside seating looked like and what the rooftop looked like. And, the thing is that it was beautiful. It looked like Saint-Tropez to me, but I think if we're going to do something in the roof, we need to really think about whether we put up barriers, whether it's glass like they have in New York. We need to do something to accommodate the sound, because even if they don't put music up there, we're going to have some sound up there. I went the other day to friends in the neighborhood, and they were up on the roof swimming at nighttime and barbecuing. I mean, we do use our rooftops for different things. I think we need to think about it in a way that is conducive to the neighbors and conducive to them. I'm in agreement with Bob that we have to figure it. We really need to figure that out.
Well, the only sound barrier that would potentially be needed would be to the south, because
Right.
well, I mean, there's only one direction.
Right.
They can't enclose themselves. There's nothing in any of the other
Right.
directions. So on any design there, as long as they provide some form of barrier, whatever it is, and it can't be a permanent structure, but whatever they do, just to the south, I'd be fine.
Me too. I would be too,
Well,
Bob. Would
let me ask you-
that- Sorry.
Could they legally put in the glass where it's not 100% enclosed, but only some of the sides and perhaps maybe the top where it's open on one end? Is that permissible? Like, for example, if it was open facing west.
So you're talking about the rolling kind of glass?
No, glass.
No, he's talking about permanent, but
Permanent?
I'm not, hurricane wise, I'm not sure how safe that is. You'd have to
I
have
don't
something
know.
that's
I
a little bit
mean,
more structural.
It would have to meet code, obviously, the Florida building code.
Right, but do we, I mean,
I don't know.
anyways, I think, these are items for, the eventual architectural plans and design. I
Right.
think the question before us today is whether or not we'd be open to it. I think that's really what we're talking about.
The problem is when this item came up originally, we spent an inordinate amount of time discussing the intricacies of what was going to be there. Remember originally the project had like fruit and some type of plants on the walls and stuff, and we spent all this time talking about hours and stuff. Perhaps this might be a good thing where we're solving two issues. They get the use that they were going to do anyway, but in reality, we're going to get the type of buffer sound-wise, because we don't want residents hearing them, and they want to solve the problem also. So maybe that's a good thing.
Okay, so they'll come back with the designs, but I think, again, the question today is it something we're open to? Because that's what we're here for, is the discussion.
Right.
And
Right. I also think that
we're
we
all
should hear.
happy with the discussion.
I think the applicant would like to speak also for a moment. So let's allow the applicants to speak, and then we can do round robin and see where we're at.
Yeah.
Okay. Alba, who is speaking for the applicant, please?
Mr. Geller.
Mr. Geller, if you can unmute yourself, please, and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone. This is Joseph Geller from Greenspoon Mortar, 200 East Broward Boulevard, Suite 1800, Fort Lauderdale, 33301. And thank you for the opportunity to present. So Mayor and Vice Mayor and Council, we are pleased to be before you. We had asked Mr. Miller and your staff to put us on the agenda. We spoke with him and the building official, as well as with the manager briefly. And let me start by saying that we agree basically with almost everything that Mr. Miller said. He did clarify one thing that we'd had concern about in terms of the presentation, but he explained it a little more thoroughly. I want to be clear that we are not asking to permanently enclose the roof, which would not be legal. We agree. 75 feet, and you cannot have any kind of a permanent enclosed structure above it, and we're not asking for one. And by the way, the same goes for the waterfront veranda on the ground floor. They are both envisioned as open air seating. The only thing we've asked, and it was correctly pointed out by Mr. Miller when he came back, I don't think it was incorrect the first time. I just don't think it was necessarily abundantly clear to everyone. We're only asking for the ability to provide protection against the weather. Otherwise, these are open air areas. So let me start in some kind of order. I'll start, frankly, with the one that in my conversations I appreciate is not necessarily extraordinarily likely to be granted. And quite frankly, it is the the least important to us. As it stands, the height is 75 feet, period. That's in your charter, as was pointed out. We don't seek to change that, and we seek no permanent structure above that. What is permitted on the roof now is this a canopy or pergola, whatever you want to call it, and it's open air. We don't disagree that it's something that might be able to be handled administratively. If that's your conclusion, if that's what your planner, your building official, and your counsel conclude, your legal counsel, then we don't disagree with that. Our issue is we are concerned, and you know, it's in the plans, and I yield to the planner, but we're not certain that the existing permitted canopy or pergola covers the entire proposed seating area. So we want to be sure that we can extend the canopy basically to the safety rail that's on the roof so that it covers the entire roof just overhead.
Can you stop right there for 1 second so that we can, okay, Mr. Miller, is the plans that we have, because there's so much here, I need to go piece by piece if you all, is the plans that we have right now, thank you, cover what he says? Does it go all the way across? I thought it went all the way across when we did this so many years ago.
It does. And this is, I'm holding up the drawing that they submitted. You can see on the roof that there's a canopy right there. Comes right to the edge of the roof line. So
okay, so they're permitted to put the canopy all the way to the railing, correct?
right, the column that holds up the trellis is set back to meet the setback, but we have always allowed trellises, canopies to cantilever out as far as the edge of the roof. Yes. Now I don't know. Okay. I don't know if this covers the entire roof, but in this area, and I don't know where the seating is because we were provided with a plan for that. So, but the canopy could be, the trellis, whatever, could be expanded to cover a greater area, and it clearly can come out to the edge of the roof line. Now, it does make the building look taller because the idea with the step back, of course, is when you get to 75, everything on the roof kind of pinched in so it doesn't look like the building keeps going up and up and up.
Okay, but they're allowed to go all the way to the edge, correct? Yes. So they don't really we don't need to change anything because it's already allowed, correct?
Good.
So that's good.
In my opinion, yes. And like I said, they can do, we could work with them, I believe, to create some weatherization structure or roll downs or glass panels or something on the sides, and the top could be modified to make it more waterproof. Right now it's like a trellis or a pergola where it's open and the air can flow, but that could be made.
That's administrative. That's not us.
That's administrative. And Mike, I think Bob and I are in agreement because we would like to make sure that the sound, especially on the side to the apartment,
the south
to the
side,
south side,
that's the only side.
We do something a little more, that we make sure that we're doing, whether it's glass or whatever you guys administratively, that the sound, there's a sound barrier between the buildings as best we can. So, Mr.
Let me
Geller,
address, if I might, Mayor.
yes.
So what we're seeking, with the understanding that it can be extended so it covers the roof area overhead, let me say again, we are not seeking any permanent enclosure. We're not asking it. The whole idea is to have open air rooftop. But what we are seeking is, as you just said, Mayor, once the pergola or roof canopy is extended, whatever you call it, we want the ability to have only when the weather is bad, when the weather dictates, and usually that would be heavy rain, although, you know, it's possible that you could have 102-degree day with 98% humidity. We don't want people passing it either. But with that said, just because of climate change, we do want the ability, when necessary, to have not permanent, just temporary kind of roll down, whether it's, we by the way, don't want to obstruct the view. It would be glass or clear plastic or something that would only come down when the weather dictated.
So
Now in terms of, let me add, in terms of the request that we go up 5 feet, you know, it's not an operational thing. 5 more feet to 15 when the building core part where the elevator shaft and AC is, the intent was only to be able to do a grand architectural design piece up there. If that's not granted, it doesn't affect our operation in any way. We have no problem with not getting that, but we put it in because there is a desire to do a grand architectural statement. If that's not something, and I've heard from, frankly, some of the members that that's not something they're comfortable with, that's fine. As to the noise, let me say, first of all, that there's not going to be, let me be clear, we're not asking to have a restaurant on the rooftop. There is, as you pointed out, Mayor, and you visited the one in Palm Beach, Le Bilboquet is a world-class destination restaurant that we anticipate will be not only the finest and fanciest anywhere in the Surf Bow Bay area, but, you know, maybe anywhere north of South Beach. It's going to be a unique statement. They operate only, I think, 4 or 5. It's like the Hamptons, New York City, Dallas, Denver, and Palm Beach. This, I would believe, would be the 6th. You know, I mean, it's in the Hamptons, Sag Harbor, I think. So this is a place that may have a weeks-long waiting list, and that's why we're concerned. If the weather turns bad, there's no place to put people. You can't just move them in. But it's that restaurant, all the food preparation, all of the food presentation, all of that will be done on the ground floor in the kitchen area as approved. And they're going to use, it sounds a little archaic, but I guess it's a pretty modern version, like a dumbwaiter to bring food up to the roof. It's not a restaurant up there. It's just some seating for Le Bilboquet, which is on the ground floor.
So
as far as the noise, let me just address that because I have heard that from a couple of members of council specifically. Understand that because of the structure of this building, first of all, by the way, let me assure you that Le Bilboquet is not going to put a heavy metal band on the roof. That's just not happening. It is not the ambiance of the restaurant. It is not anything anybody is seeking. It's possible that they may want to have some kind of a little cool jazz quartet or quintet up there that'll be playing some nice soothing music while people have drinks and maybe a little late supper looking out at this magnificent view that you have to offer. But the structure of the building is such that that will be projected, if at all, on 3 sides: east, north, and west. Because to the south, facing the neighboring building that's going up and providing a buffer to the neighboring building that's going up is where that core that we were discussing that goes up 20 feet for the elevator shaft in the AC, that's where that's located. We go up with the pergola 10 feet on that 20. We would say, well, maybe we could go up another 5. But that entire structure is on the south side of our building, and it is a natural buffer once this building is constructed per plans that specifically protects the building to the south from any sound at all. Now, I want to be clear. We understand that this is a matter of concern. You have a very strict noise ordinance. we anticipate your noise ordinance is sufficient. And equally, you know, again, just it's not going to be the nature of it that it's going to be some loud obstructive band, but we are perfectly prepared to comply with your noise ordinance. And if there were to be some issue that's not addressed by having this big, the building core blocking to the south anyway, if you amend your noise ordinance, if there's any issue with it, we're still subject to it, and we have absolutely no problem with that. So we don't really think that'll be a concern. The only thing other than the canopy and the temporary, not permanently enclosed, roll down if necessary, is just the use. There is language in what you approved that says no table service. Now, as was pointed out, it says, and the use has evolved a little because they have this very special restaurant coming in. It's not really anticipated just for, you know, the occasional party. I mean, frankly, some, you know, late supper cool jazz is probably less disruptive than parties would be anyway. The hours are specified. Your code says when it can be, and that's clear. We're not looking for any change in what you've already approved. But it uses the phrase no table service. And frankly, that is a little vague. You know, I mean, if you want to go up to the roof for drinks, I guess that means that you can belly up to the bar, but they can't bring your bottle of champagne or splits or whatever you're drinking to your table, and it would permit a buffet, because that wouldn't be table service. But this fancy French restaurant is not really buffet oriented. You know, if you're going up there to spend some money and look out over the water and hear a little bit of cool jazz, you probably would like the waiter or waitress to be able to bring your drinks and whatever's coming up from downstairs to your table. So we do want you to be able to clarify that it's not going to be a restaurant upstairs. It's just some seats.
Okay.
Mr. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. So Mike, first of all, a lot of what they want on the rooftop, they can work out administratively with you, correct? Because going to the end by the railing is already permitted. They can do the roll down if they choose. That's okay. Bob and I are in agreement that we want to make sure that the south side is protected and the people on the south side for sound.
Yeah.
None of us want to change the ordinance of sound and time. Now, as far as no table service, I don't know how we got that, because even when they were going to do parties, occasionally they had to serve them. So there's a disconnect between what when they first came originally and they were going to have occasional parties, whatever, you have to serve the people at a table. So this no table service is a little odd to me of how we got there. I don't know if anybody in council can remember how we got there.
Yeah, I think the intent back then was that we were trying not to have a restaurant up top, but times have changed. You know, I think one of the things, and one thing, Mr. Geller, one of the things here is I definitely see the benefit for both sides for the restaurant coming in here. And I'm willing to support, you know, obviously having table service, having, you know, the restaurant be able to serve people upstairs. I want to see the restaurant come in. I want to see this building get built the right way. I think it can be a draw for Bay Harbor. I know this sounds like a silly question to ask right now, but I've got to ask it though, because if we're going to be bending over backwards to assist, the restaurant, when it goes to market itself, I would just like to see that it actually lists Bay Harbor as its location.
Not Bal Harbor.
Not Bal Harbor,
Right.
not Miami Beach. I'd like to see it when it lists its location.
Or Miami.
Right, or even to list Miami. I want to see Bay Harbor is listed on there.
Yeah.
Right, so that would be a huge benefit the town, and I think the town would make sure that we can help out the restaurant.
Vice Mayor, if I can respond to that forthright.
Please.
The Tauber family, Erwin Tauber, Laura Tauber, for many years have been tremendously involved and invested in Bay Harbor Islands. Not anything that has a U somewhere. The Broad Causeway, as built by Shepherd Broad, the town of Bay Harbor Islands. They're not just invested financially, they're invested emotionally in the town of Bay Harbor Islands. This site in particular was their headquarters for many years. So let me say affirmatively and explicitly on the record, it will say Town of Bay Harbor Islands, Florida. Not Bell Harbor, not Surfside, not like the misnomer that the shul has that's located. The shul. What they call it.
Okay.
I'm glad to hear it.
Because of time, we need to sort it. So
quickly, I want to address the other issue that the Vice Mayor raised. The planner has said we can extend the canopy at the portico there so people, one lane isn't dry and the other is wet, and that can be done administratively. On the opposite side, if I've understood Mr. Miller correctly, it's also administrative. We want to do the same thing for the weather that we want to do on the roof. We want to extend the canopy to the safety barrier and just have, in the event of inclement weather, mostly rain, but it could possibly be this ridiculous heat that sometimes, comes in. We want to be able to have just roll downs, not enclosed, not permanent, just retractable when necessary. So that leaves only one item, and that's the one that the Vice Mayor also raised, which I discussed with him. The ground floor has a 20-foot setback. Oddly, because I've heard wedding cake, but oddly, it's like a reverse wedding cake. The second floor extends 10 feet further north than the ground floor. So it's only, in effect, a, quote, 10-foot setback. I don't know why that extends out. That's like anti-wedding cake. We want to square that off. This is the only permanent enclosure that we're seeking. We do want to extend the north wall, which is a glass wall, 10 feet north, closer to the bridge, which is, if you were looking at it from one of those many helicopters I heard you talking about earlier, you would never see, because the second floor already extends. And not to be crude, but this change will principally be observed only by the water rats under the bridge, because that's the level of the ground floor. Now, one of your members pointed out to me, well, you might be able to see it if you were traveling east on Kane Concourse, and I'll concede that that's probably true, except that it's a glass wall. It would increase the square footage of the restaurant enclosure area enough for them to be able to use their models, their ordering, all the other things stuff of their other restaurants.
wait, is this for them to sit?
Yeah, this is just increasing the size of the restaurant. They want to move closer to the bridge.
Right.
And again, I don't have a problem with it as long as there's an indemnification and the hold harmless. That's it. Other than that, no
By
problem.
the way, there is no seating there, and there's no seating to the north of the restaurant. There is a landscaped area. There are planters. There might be some benches. That's some of what would be given up. And I want to be clear, we're not taking the town's land. This is just a reduction setback. So I would suggest two things. Number one, explicitly on the record, I want to say that we completely appreciate the Vice Mayor's point and we agree. We will agree to a hold harmless indemnification agreement that says if for any reason in doing repairs, expansion, whatever, renovations, whatever to the bridge, that you have as a result, anything that comes into our property, into the remaining 10 feet there, that we will hold the town harmless, we will indemnify the town. It's still going to be heavily landscaped. It's going to be very beautiful, but if for some reason damage is done to that landscape area, that's on us, not on the town. That's on us. We'll absorb it. We'll pay
That's
for
all
it.
I need to hear.
I have
And-
2 questions for Mr.
I'll
Miller.
just say one more word on it.
Sure.
Another one of your members who said they wanted to be sure that it wasn't a precedent. But as was pointed out, I think it can be drafted around because it's a gateway property. It's a gateway project. They are all unique. And accordingly, what we would say is, and there's a view I think that could be put up of the waterway. What we would say is that you should not change the code to say a 10-foot setback is permitted. Leave the code stating a 20-foot setback and just include specific language that say, however, if it's a gateway property and it is, again, the visibility issue shouldn't be a problem. If you're standing on the bridge, because the bridge is elevated, you're looking at our second floor anyway. And so the glass on the first floor shouldn't matter, but you
Shouldn't see it.
you could draft it in a way that said, if it's a gateway property and if a hold harmless is given so that the town is not liable for anything that results in such circumstance only, the setback could be reduced from 20 to 10, and it's not a precedent. We certainly agree to that, and I'll just say this and close because the hour is late. The reason this is before you the way it is because the Tauber family and their partners wanted not to come in with something and say, this is what we want, this is how we want to do it, and have it in front of you, you know, in some take it or leave it attitude. The whole approach here is to put it on. We ask that it be a discussion item, specifically so you'd have the chance to talk through it and say, what would you do? What are you willing to do? What can be done? What are your concerns? How can we solve the noise issue? Which I think the fact that the southern barrier part is there, but again, if you change your ordinance, if anything is required to tighten it, it's okay with us. All of these things, whether administrative or not, we want the town council comfortable. It's our approach to work collaboratively with you. Any issues that you've raised, we've tried to be sure that we're able to address. We think this is going to be a great thing for the town. This way, by your saying, yeah, we're okay with these things, you can have your staff come back in a collaboration between your planner and your legal counsel with, this still has to be, as I understand it, it has to be an ordinance to amend your code because you guys don't do variances. So this will come back at the next meeting and the following meeting. It'll come back for first reading and second reading. It'll come back, as I understand it, because it's zoning related, for 2 public hearings. Your entire town will have transparency. Everyone will know exactly what's going to come up. This is not before you for anything tonight that's binding. This is staff, bring us back the amendments to the extent needed to allow these things. The ones that can be done administratively, we want you to be aware of. And then you'll still have 2 meetings, 2 public hearings, 2 opportunities for every citizen to be heard. If you have to tweak something, all we ask is this. If a tweak is necessary, let's approach that collaboratively. Let's make sure that we don't say no any more than we're asking you to just blanketly say yes. If there's an issue, let's address it. Let's find a solution. And we want to be your partners in bringing beautiful and important project to the town.
So
I have two.
wait, let me talk to the council because the time and this is a discussion. Is there anything that they have asked besides the extra height that anybody is in disagreement with, so that we can give directions to our staff of what it is, and then we have to take public comment? So is Kelly? Yes.
My only two concerns, I'm not in favor of violating the height charter. I don't think we can anyway. So, you know, that's covered. And then whatever is changed in the code that could possibly apply to either the two hotels, because the former Trip property has a whole rooftop amenities area with a pool. And then the other one on East Bay Harbor has like a penthouse area. I think that's where we had our retreat. So those are two possible areas that could try to do the same thing if they like it. So if we're crafting an ordinance, then we would just have to look at it and say, if those two properties wanted to apply those things as well, A, could they, and B, would we be okay with that? Because that pool area on the Trip property, for example, you know, it's a lot closer to residential areas. So
correct.
It's next to a condo, and then it's across a very narrow waterway from the single family homes.
Can I ask Frank something, or Mike? The other properties, this property is zoned commercial and residential, and the one where the Trip is residential. Did they join those? Right? Is there a difference in them? I can't.
You have to speak up.
There's the comprehensive plan, then there's the zoning. The comprehensive plan for the former restaurant Tauber site that was there for years before they converted it to the
Cafe Chevron.
Cafe Chevron, yeah.
Yep, right. That the underlying comp plan land use is commercial underneath both of those lots. On the Trip and on the Grand Beach, it's residential underneath it.
So does that make a difference so that they cannot
Yes.
apply?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we have our answer now.
Okay.
That this particular property is different. So it answers Kelly's question.
Yeah, and don't forget the Trip. I'm sorry, not the Trip. The Grand Beach has a covenant that they can't serve food to anyone as well. They can't.
because we
That
gave
can't
them
change.
something else.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on, Kelly. What is the second?
That's it. And
That was
Okay.
the height charter, I'm not in favor, you know, of
Me
violating.
neither. Okay,
Yeah, I
well,
don't
we
think
can't.
anyone is.
We can't because we
That's good.
have a charter
Right.
and
It's
there's no
outside of
waiver.
our ability.
Right.
Outside of our preview. Okay.
I had two quick questions for
Okay.
Mr. Miller. One is, regardless of these changes, the old agreement as far as their project still stands where it's going to be a green building, correct?
Yes.
I just want to make sure on the record.
Yes.
And then second, what is our ability in regards to this issue with the trellis on the roof? What can we do? What can't we do? Because obviously 10 feet, you know, you can't do anything with 10 feet. Can we go to 15? Can we go to 20? Is that permissible?
No, that's the height.
On the trellis, it's not permanent.
Right.
Make an easy code amendment, apply it just to this specific site actually because of the nature of the property, and allow this one to raise the trellis from 10 feet to 15 feet. You leave it the same for all of the other multifamily, the hotels and all that. So that's not a very hard thing to do.
Okay.
That's
just wanna make
fine.
sure.
That's fine.
That's fine.
All right.
Okay, anybody else have? So we have given our staff direction, the things that they can work out as far as administratively, we would like them to just work it out administratively. And the things that need to come back to us because of code changes, we're going to ask Mr. Miller with Mr. Simone and staff to work those things and to bring it back. Now I need to go to public comments. Alba?
Wait, no, I haven't spoken yet.
Oh, I'm
Stephanie.
sorry. I didn't. Okay, go ahead, Isaac.
I'm also concerned that an approval of what was presented will run astray of our 75-foot height limit. I didn't even realize that like canopies on top of a roof can go all the way to the railing. I don't think any other development really has that. And even if it's not a permanent structure or a glass structure or whatever it, might be, whatever is presented, it looks like another story. And if you could just imagine that 75 feet is buried somewhere down on the, on the ceiling of the top floor, and then you have this like a pretty much another story that is like covers the entire roof all the way to the edge. And I know that it's, it's like a pergola or, whatever you want to call it. And it's, it's slatted or whatever, but it's going to be high, it's going to be really high. I think, personally, I think it's a beautiful, structure as presented. The pictures that were presented, today that were brought are very pretty. I think, this is definitely necessary for Kane Concourse. I think it's an important project for Kane Concourse. But I'm afraid, I'm very interested to hear what the citizens, at the public meetings are going to say, primarily as it relates to the hike. I'm not a huge fan of giving up any of the setbacks that we've hammered out over the last, 15 years either. I think the setbacks are important, especially as it relates to the bridge. I think a building, whether it's the first floor or the second floor that's, that is close or appears close to that bridge is going to make, the, the westbound approach from that waterway bridge into Bay Harbor kind of seem like New York City. And I know how stringent we were and how unbending we were when it came to the Grand Beach on the opposite side of the bridge, where their plans came in with a very large setback from the edge of the bridge to the building. Okay, they had some low-level walkways and gardens and everything like that, but their actual building started, I would say, 30 or 40 feet, or 35 to 40 feet away from like the railing of the bridge. And, those are my concerns. I mean, overall, the project is very, very pretty. But I've never heard, Miller say that, a rooftop pergola can go all the way to the edge of the building around the entire roof. I mean, I don't remember that ever happening. I don't think that exists in Bay Harbor Island.
I can comment just quickly on that. The code does not say that. The code says that if you have a rooftop structure, except for the stairs and the elevator, which has to be at the edge of the building to get out of the building safely, that it says the walls of any structure have to be 15 feet back from that. The trellis thing came up later on a couple multifamily projects, and not to cast blame to somebody else, but the manager at the time talked to them and said, I'll let them cantilever out further, not hold the 15 feet. So staff picked up on that from our boss, the manager, and that's how that became that they could come out to the edge. So it's not clearly written in the code. You are absolutely correct. It was done administratively by a former manager, and we've all picked up on it over the years in the multifamily projects. It doesn't happen a lot. Most people have a smaller structure near their pool on the multifamily. We haven't had much commercial development, but that's primarily where it started from.
Gotcha. Then I'm gonna close with this because I know it's late, Stephanie. That's
okay.
I'm completely against changing the law for one property. I don't buy for a minute the argument that this is a unique property or this is, you know, an exclusive property, because it's not, it's one of several gateway properties. And I think anything that we do as a council needs to apply to all the gateway properties, whether it's going to affect them or not, whether they're going to take action on it or not is, you know, shouldn't, you know, be included in the mix. But if we're going to change, you know, the zoning in this gateway property, I think it should apply to all gateway properties. And those are
Okay,
my comments. Thank you.
thank you. Alba, do we have any public comments?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Mrs. Newhut?
Ms. Newhut, if you could please take off your mute and state your name and address for the record.
Francis Newhut, 1060 Kane Concourse. This is a commercial-only gateway. If you look at the FLUM map, we haven't changed it. I submitted plans back in 2011 when this particular project was there. It's hard to believe that these people are going to, or you're going to let them not have not only a council quasi-judicial public hearing, but not go back to planning and zoning. I've listened to all of you, and unfortunately, the only one who really made any sense to me was Salver. And we have problems in this town, and that's called flooding, and we are in a flood zone. And I didn't hear Mr. Miller mention anything about this 9+1 elevations, and you can't build up, you know, garages underground anymore. We had plenty of flooding over in the 2 hotels. Those are the 2 gateways, and they both flood. These are serious issues here. And again, like I said, this is when you really need the Planning and Zoning Board. I don't think anyone up there, except for Mr. Miller and maybe a few who are a little knowledgeable, but you know, we need architects, we need planners, we need people who know what they're talking about. And restaurants are the worst. They bring in, and you could see even by the meat market, meat bar, whatever it is, you're bringing in density to the hilt. I don't know if we can even carry this. And we've got a bridge over there where kids, they ride their bikes, they walk over there every day. There's no room for that bridge. There's no room for walking. And now we're going to have this tremendous building. It just doesn't make sense. And if it doesn't go back to planning and zoning, it will be your mistake. And I hope you will be held accountable for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Newhut. Alba, anybody else?
Yes, we have Ms. Silver.
Okay.
We'll have
Linda, if you can unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
I have worked with the Taubers for years when I was a mayor. They are very giving. They produce beautiful work, and having a design firm for over 50 years, I think whatever they do, since I checked all of their properties, it will be beautiful. And they will work with the town. They worked with us to get our artwork on the center of Kane Concourse. They are all for Bay Harbor Islands. I also would like to say, as far as noise, you have rooftop pools all over the island. People are swimming, splashing, talking. To have a restaurant where people are eating, their mouths are closed more than the people in the pools. So I don't think you really have to worry about the sound. Thank you.
Thank you. Alba, anybody else?
No, we don't have any further public comment.
Okay, I think Mr. Miller and Mr. Simone, I think you've been given your directions from the council of what, not all, but the majority, if you could please bring it back to next month and work out administratively what you can and bring back what you can't, and we will go from there. Okay, move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good night.
Take care.
Good night.
Bye.